Chapter 5546. Genius 1 Second, remember if you want to go. Talk. Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Invincible Patriarch, please speak less. Ling Tianyu hurriedly stopped him. Primordial Invincible was already in such a state, and his words were somewhat unclear. Whether Lin Yi was bragging or not, Primordial Invincible was definitely not Lin Yi's opponent. Moreover, Ling Tianyu had always felt that he owed Lin Yi too much, and he did not want Primordial Invincible to offend Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi was not so narrow-minded. After listening to Primordial Invincible's words, he just chuckled twice. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. I don't need to say so much to you. Lin Yi said indifferently. Even if Primordial Invincible was at his peak, Lin Yi would not take him seriously, let alone Primordial Invincible in his current state. Ling Tianyu hurriedly said, Brother Lin, please don't be offended. Invincible Patriarch did not know the situation, so he questioned Brother Lin. Lin Yi pointed at Ling Tianyu and said to Primordial Invincible, Fortunately, you have such a good, grand disciple. Otherwise, I would not have bothered to talk to you. Can you still move your hands? If you can, then give me your hands. What do you want? Primordial Invincible was not worried that Lin Yi would harm him. Since he was already in such a state, Lin Yi probably would not have such thoughts. However, Primordial Invincible was very curious about what Lin Yi wanted to do. You can't even move your hands? Forget it, Lin Yi said impatiently, and directly reached out to grab Primordial Invincible's wrist. Love, go, small, say, net, Primordial Invincible subconsciously wanted to struggle, but in his current state, everything was in vain. However, the next moment, Primordial Invincible was completely shocked. An incomparably pure and powerful spiritual power came from his wrist, and instantly poured into the broken meridians, and then began to rapidly repair them. How was this possible? Even a level 5 recover pill would not have such a quick effect. Primordial Invincible knew that the hidden force left by Reverend Du Nan was eroding his meridians. Otherwise, with the 1,000 Blades faction's resources, they would have been able to find recover pills, and Primordial Invincible would not have been crippled on the bed like that. But Lin Yi's pure chi was able to get rid of the destructive energy master Du Nan left behind, and repair the damaged meridians. To Primordial Invincible, it was a miracle. A while later, Undefeated was still in shock, and Lin Yi had already retracted his hand. He clapped his hands twice and said faintly, All right. Right now, the 1,000 Blades sect still has a nascent soul great circle cultivator who has the qualifications to be one of the 10 small ones. Go register yourself first, then work hard at the Primeval Grand Meeting. I reckon that entering the 10 small ones won't be too big of a problem. When the time comes, there's no need to take back those who left. It's done. Ling Tianyu had a look of disbelief on his face. He knew how miraculous Lin Yi was, but he had never imagined that Lin Yi could be this miraculous. A cultivator at the peak of the nascent soul realm, who was crippled, was actually cured in such a short time. With Lin Yi's ability, was he going to defy the heavens? Ling Tianyu did not doubt whether Invincible Primeval had really been cured or not. Because Invincible Primeval was still in shock, he did not restrain his aura. In order to cooperate with Lin Yi's genuine chi, Invincible Primeval subconsciously operated his own mental cultivation method, and the aura of the peak of the Yuanying stage was naturally revealed. Love, go, small, say, Netkalin. He shrugged his shoulders and said, It's just some minor injuries, nothing serious. After you've signed up, go to the Shangguan clan and pay your respects. Tell them that I asked you to go, and the Shangguan clan will arrange everything for you. Okay, I understand. Ling Tianyu did not know what to say or how to react for a while. It was said that great kindness cannot be thanked with words. Now, Ling Tianyu really understood the meaning of this sentence. With the kindness that Lin Yi had shown to the 1,000 Blades faction, how could it be resolved with just a word of thanks? Lin Yi waved his hand and did not say anything more. Then he turned around and left. Invincible Primeval was still in a daze. Happiness came too suddenly, and Invincible Primeval felt like it was a dream. He was afraid that if he was dazed for a moment, he would find that it was all fake. Ling Tianyu had to be clear-headed. Seeing that Lin Yi was about to leave, he hurried to send him off. In fact, his excitement was no less than that of Invincible Primeval. The rise of the Thousand Blades faction was his greatest hope. With Invincible Primeval in perfect condition, he could at least look forward to becoming one of the top 10 disciples. When Ling Tianyu returned, Invincible Primeval finally came back to his senses. He let out a long sigh and said, "Tianyu, you really have good foresight to be able to make a friend like Lin Yi. Now, I really believe that the Qinkuan sect does not dare to provoke Lin Yi. How could he be at the Foundation establishment Great Circle? How could a Foundation establishment Great Circle heal a nascent soul Great Circle? Moreover, he did not show any signs of fatigue after the treatment." Ling Tianyu nodded in agreement and said, "That's right, Brother Lin is indeed unfathomable. Invincible Patriarch, if there is a chance in the future, we must repay Brother Lin well." "That's natural. Lin Yi did not simply heal me. He gave our Thousand Blades faction hope. Otherwise, the Thousand Blades faction would have vanished into thin air." Invincible Primeval was sincerely convinced by Lin Yi. The ancient underworld was a place where only the strong were respected, not to mention that Lin Yi was his savior. After sighing, Invincible Primeval excitedly asked Ling Tianyu about Lin Yi. He looked like a fan chasing after a celebrity in the secular world. Ling Tianyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After chatting casually for a while, Ling Tianyu quickly said, "Invincible Patriarch, our Thousand Blades faction now has the hope of reviving. Brother Lin also said that we should hurry up and register, then go to the Shangguan clan to pay our respects. Why don't we go now?" "Let's go." "Hurry up, I'll go with you. The ancient grand meeting is about to begin. If we don't hurry up, we'll miss the opportunity." Thinking about the revival of the Thousand Blades faction, Invincible Primeval immediately jumped up from his seat. This was a big event that couldn't be delayed. The two didn't have much to pack, so they quickly went to register for the ancient grand meeting. In fact, the Thousand Blades faction had registered before, but because most of their disciples left, they were disqualified. They couldn't be blamed for this, as they only had a crippled Invincible Primeval and Ling Tianyu. It was impossible for them to participate in the ancient grand meeting. But now it was different. Invincible Primeval was a peak nascent soul cultivator, and he alone was enough to fight against an entire faction. Even if the Thousand Blades faction only had the two of them left, no one could look down on them. After registering, Ling Tianyu and Invincible Primeval went straight to the Shangguan clan to pay their respects. Today is still the 5th update. School Bell's foreign chapters are still being serialized. Please add me to the Fishman's official QQ account, Fishman's second generation, and his WeChat account, Urine22. All kinds of activities are held regularly, and autographed books are constantly being sent. Chapter 5547. Genius 1. Second remember if you want to go. Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Shangguan Qing Yun also knew about the Thousand Blade sect. It was a sect that was related to Lin Yi. When the son of the Qinkuan sect master died, there were people from the Thousand Blades sect by his side. Hence, after receiving the visiting card, Shangguan Qingyun didn't dare to delay and ask someone to bring them in. Love, go, small, say, Netku, this must be the Thousand Blades sect's primordial Taoist, right? And Ling Tianyu, sect master? Shangguan Qingyun welcomed the two of them enthusiastically at the entrance of the living room. This was already considered a grand etiquette. Primordial Invincible quickly walked up to greet him. He cupped his fists and said, "Shangguan family head, how could we dare to trouble you to come and greet us?" Ling Tianyu's face was slightly red. Now that there were only two people left in the Thousand Blade sect, He was indeed the sect master of the Thousand Blade sect. Shangguan clan head, Junior Ling Tianyu, greets the clan head. Although Shangguan Qinyin politely addressed Ling Tianyu as the sect master, Ling Tianyu didn't really think that he was on equal footing with Shangguan Qinyin. You two don't have to be so polite. There's no need to talk about seniors and juniors between us. Why don't we talk as equals? Shangguan Qinyin knew that Ling Tianyu had gotten to know Lin Yi when he was training in the secular world, and he had a good relationship with Lin Yi. Therefore, Shangguan Qinyin wouldn't put on an act in front of Ling Tianyu. It was necessary to be modest. I don't dare. How can this junior be qualified to speak with the Shangguan family's patriarch as an equal? Ling Tianyu was startled and hurriedly waved his hand to refuse. What a joke! Who was Shangguan Qinyin? The patriarchs of the 4 great sects and clans, while the Thousand Blades sect didn't even have the qualifications to be one of the 10 small sections. With the strength of the primordial, invincible, great perfection of the nascent soul realm, he could barely be compared to Shangguan Qinyin. What was Ling Tianyu? If he really agreed, then he would really be unable to differentiate good from bad. Shangguan Qinyin smiled faintly and didn't explain much. He invited the two to sit down and serve them tea, then asked with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, did you come to our Shangguan clan because of Grand Marshal Uncle Lin Yi's recommendation?" Previously, he had just mentioned to Lin Yi if there were any sects that he should focus on, and the Thousand Blades sect came knocking on his door. Of course, Shangguan Qinyin knew that Lin Yi was behind this. Moreover, when he left the Green Cloud sect, he saw that Lin Yi was heading towards the Thousand Blades sect. Ling Tianyu nodded subconsciously. Then he came to a realization and exchanged a glance with Primordial Invincible. Did Shangguan Qinyin really say Marshal Granduncle Lin Yi just now? Ling Tianyu knew that Lin Yi was the Grand Marshal Granduncle of the Green Cloud sect. But since when did the Shangguan clan's clan master have to address Lin Yi as Grand Marshal Uncle? You don't have to be surprised. Our Shangguan clan and the 3 great sects of the Northern Island are inextricably linked. It's true that Grand Marshal Uncle Lin Yi is an elder of the Green Cloud sect, but he is also an elder of our Shangguan clan. So, for now, you're temporarily under the Shangguan clan. After this archaic meeting, you will become a sect under the Green Cloud sect, just like our Shangguan clan. Shangguan Qinyin didn't feel embarrassed at all. Not only was there nothing to be embarrassed about, but it also made Shangguan Qinyin feel proud of having such a powerful backer like Lin Yi. Primordial Invincible and Ling Tianyu looked at each other. They really couldn't understand what was going on. However, when they thought about how unfathomable Lin Yi was, they suddenly felt that it wasn't something that they couldn't understand. Shangguan Qinyin didn't care about what they were thinking. He continued speaking in a gentle tone. Since Grand Marshal Uncle Lin Yi wants your Thousand Blades faction to enter the top 10, then this matter is basically in the bag. In the future, we should get closer to each other. After all, we're all disciples of Grand Marshal Uncle Lin Yi, so we should take care of each other. In this qualifying round, you should prepare for those events first. Perhaps it will be easier for you to enter the top 10. Shangguan Qinyin didn't know if Grand Marshal Uncle Lin Yi had told them about this. Just to be safe, he told them about the events in detail. Primordial Invincible and Ling Tianyu were very grateful. Previously, Lin Yi really didn't mention these things. In his opinion, with Primordial Invincible, who was at the great circle of the nascent soul realm, there was basically no one who could rival them except for the top 4. Therefore, those preparations in advance weren't of much use to Primordial Invincible. After a while, Primordial Invincible and Ling Tianyu bid farewell and left. After leaving the Shangguan clan, Primordial Invincible let out a long sigh and said, "Tianyu, I thought I had overestimated Lin Yi, but now I know that I have still greatly underestimated Lin Yi's strength." Ling Tianyu also sighed. Let alone Patriarch Invincible, this disciple has always known that Brother Lin is powerful. but I didn't expect him to be so powerful. Just thinking about it is a bit unbelievable. Tianyu, you can't call him Brother Lin so casually in the future. Didn't you hear Family Master Shangguan call him Grand Marshal Uncle? Don't tell me you want to be Family Master Shangguan's Grand Marshal Uncle? Primordial Invincible scolded with a serious expression. Previously, Primordial Invincible thought that it was a good thing for Ling Tianyu to call Lin Yi brother. However, since even the Shangguan clan was a junior, it was inappropriate for Ling Tianyu to address Lin Yi as such. In my opinion, Senior Lin Yi is definitely an ancient almighty being. Even an old man like me wouldn't feel wronged if I call him senior. Kid, you should be more respectful, understand? Primordial Invincible had long since put away his arrogance and spirit. In front of Lin Yi's strength, he would be an idiot if he continued to act insolently. Yes, this disciple understands. Ling Tianyu didn't agree with Primordial Invincible's words. He didn't think that Lin Yi was such a person, but he didn't dare go against Primordial Invincible's words. While they were talking, a few high-ranking members of the Qinkuan sect walked toward them. The one leading them was the sect master, Transcending Tribulation Enlightened. When he saw Primordial Invincible and Ling Tianyu coming out from the Shangguan clan's territory, he was shocked. Without saying anything, he waved his hand, turned around, and left. Ling Tianyu asked in surprise, "Why did the people from the Qinkuan sect leave as soon as they saw us? Is it because they found out that you, Patriarch Invincible, have fully recovered your nascent soul cultivation?" Primordial Invincible looked at Transcending Tribulation Enlightened Master, then coldly harumphed and said, "It's not a big deal if they found out that I fully recovered. However, Transcending Tribulation Enlightened Master is only slightly weaker than me, so they aren't afraid of me. What they are afraid of is the place where we came from." Ling Tianyu suddenly understood. He turned around and looked at the Shangguan clan's territory, then said, "So that's how it is. It seems like the Shangguan clan's strength has indeed made the Qinkuan sect afraid." Silly boy, the Qinkuan sect isn't afraid of the Shangguan clan, but the Azure Cloud sect behind them. Only now did I realize how terrifying the Azure Cloud sect is. Or, I should say, how terrifying the grand uncle of the Azure Cloud sect is Senior Lin Yi. Primordial Invincible had a fascinated look on his face. The fact that the Qinkuan sect didn't even dare to look for trouble with the Thousand Blades faction showed how terrifying Lin Yi was in the Qinkuan sect. School Bell's novel is currently being serialized. Please add me as the Fishman's official QQ account, Fishman2, and WeChat account, Urine22. All kinds of activities will be held regularly, and autographed books will be sent continuously. Chapter 5548. Genius 1 second, remember if you want to go. Talk Net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. You're really lucky, kid. Let's go back and prepare. This time, our Thousand Blades sect should have no problem entering the top 10 youngsters. Primordial Invincible was in a good mood. Seeing Sage Du Jie's expression, Primordial Invincible was even more certain of Lin Yi's ability. The Thousand Blades sect's confidence in entering the top 10 youngsters also skyrocketed. Love Go Small Talk Netka that night, the archaic convention officially opened. All the sects and families in Ruin Town gathered together. The perfected nascent soul realm masters of the 4 major sects and families, as the hosts, naturally had to come out. However, only the few who came in the morning came out. Sage Dunan and Shangguan Feixing still did not appear. According to the previous rules, the Qinkuan sect's tribulation passing sage would speak on such occasions. However, it was different this time. The first to come out was actually Shangguan Qinyin from the Shangguan clan. Sect masters and family heads. The archaic convention is about to begin. Everyone's basic points should have been reported, right? You can't fake it. Otherwise, I won't be the unlucky one. Shangguan Qinyin said with a relaxed and humorous expression. Unfortunately, no one reacted. The atmosphere was very strange. Although the recent rumors did mention the strength of the Shangguan clan, no one expected the Shangguan clan to be so strong that they directly snatched the Qinkuan sect's speech at the opening of the archaic convention. Moreover, the Qinkuan sect did not react at all. Shangguan Qinyan laughed and did not feel embarrassed. He continued, "It seems that everyone can't wait for the archaic convention to begin. I won't say much. Now, I'll directly announce the basic points of all the sects and families. Everyone vote." After saying that, Shangguan Qinyan turned around and pointed at the huge jade wall behind him. Strong and forceful handwriting automatically appeared on the jade wall. "Look, the 5 Elements sect has the highest basic points. The Qinkuan sect has fallen to 2nd place, and it's quite close to the 3rd place, the Ancient Heavens sect." Someone could not help but exclaim in a low voice. The Shangguan clan's basic points have also increased, but they still haven't surpassed the Ancient Heavens sect. How can they speak at the beginning? Why do you care so much? Look at your own sect first. The discussion about the basic points did not last long, because the only thing that could be talked about was the fact that Qinkuan Gate had dropped to 2nd place. However, there were already signs of this. After all, the rumor had been around for several days, so no one was surprised. After waiting for a while, Shangguan Qinyan said, "Next will be the announcement of the competition. After everyone has seen it, you can vote on the spot to decide if you want to maintain the original ranking or let the capable ones challenge it. Let's cut to the chase. Think about it yourselves." After that, the jade disc showed the projects that had been discussed, and then the voting began on the spot. The voting process didn't require much time. In fact, before the primeval grand meeting began, the various sects and clans basically had an idea of what to do. Therefore, the voting process was completed very quickly. After the calculation, the Qinkuan Gate's basic points and voting points surpassed the 5 Elemental sect for the time being. However, it wasn't only the Qinkuan Gate that surpassed the 5 Elemental sect. The Shangguan clan had also surpassed the 5 Elemental sect. Although it was only a slight advantage, it did surpass the 5 Elemental sect. Obviously, all the sects and clans believed that the Shangguan clan's strength shouldn't be the weakest among the 4 big sections. Of course, this wasn't important. The 4 big sects were still the 4 big sects, and nothing unexpected had happened. The same went for the 10 small sections. Before the new sects revealed their strength, everyone still believed in the old sections. The only pity was that the Blue Cloud sect wasn't ranked first among the 10 small sections. In other words, the Blue Cloud sect wasn't qualified to challenge the 4 big sections. They had to challenge the 10 small sects above them first before they could challenge the 4 big sections. Lin, Yi, and Xianijia weren't surprised by this result. After all, everyone thought that the Shangguan clan was very powerful, but it had nothing to do with the Blue Cloud sect. Although Lin Yi had sold a lot of pills, which helped the Blue Cloud sect gain a lot of fame, it only increased their ranking by a few points. They didn't enter the first place among the 10 small sects, but they were pretty close to it. Although it'll take some effort, it's not a big deal. It's easy to get the qualification to challenge the 4 big sections. At least, it's much better than the 1,000 Blade School. Lin, he didn't mind this at all. He just felt sorry for the 1,000 Blade School. But there was nothing he could do about it. After all, that was the rule. Of course, Lin Yi knew that with the immemorial undefeatable sect strength, entering the 10 small sects wouldn't be a problem. However, the 1,000 Blade School's reputation had been completely ruined. Not only did they lose the qualification to challenge the 10 small sects, they didn't even have the qualification to challenge the 10 small sections. According to the rules, if the 1,000 Blade School wanted to become one of the 10 small sects, they had to first challenge their current position and obtain the qualification to challenge the 10 small sections. Then, they would continue to challenge the 10 small sects until they obtained the qualification to challenge the 10 small sects. Finally, they could officially challenge the 10 small sections. Fortunately, with the immemorial, undefeatable sect at the nascent soul realm, Lin, he didn't have to worry about the Thousand Blades School not having the chance to get promoted. The only thing he had to consider was how many battles the Thousand Blades School had to go through in order to successfully get promoted. Everyone has seen the score. Needless to say, you all know where you are and when it's your turn. Now, let's begin the challenge for the 10 small sects qualification. This time it was the Tribulation Passing Sage who spoke. After all, he was the nominal leader of the 4 big sections. He couldn't let Shangguan Qingyan steal all the limelight. There were only 5 reserve seats for the challenge of the 10 minor sects. If the Thousand Blades faction wanted to challenge them, they would first have to enter one of the 5 reserve seats. However, the Thousand Blades faction could only challenge the last reserve seat. If they succeeded, they would have to continue resisting the other sects that wanted to challenge the reserve seat. As for the qualification to challenge the 10 small sects, in theory, all 5 of them could. However, the reality was that only the first place could challenge any of the 10 small sects unconditionally. The 2nd to 5th places could only continue to challenge the 10 small sects after the first place succeeded in the challenge. If the first place failed, then the next 4 would lose the qualification to challenge. This rule could be said to be quite unfair, but there was no other way. After all, the rules of the game were set by the 4 big sections. They couldn't possibly make rules that were unfavorable to their own sects. Chapter 5549. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? This is a wonderful novel for you to read. The so-called gambling battle was when the reserve qualification could not continue to be challenged. One could take out 1,000 spiritual jades to bet against the 10 small sections. No matter who won or lost, the 1,000 spiritual jades would not be returned. If the challenger won, he could only advance to the next round. The spiritual jades were taken by the Town of Ruins and belonged to the organization. If the challenger lost, he would lose everything. The spiritual jades would be lost to the 10 small sections. The rules of this gambling battle could be said to be quite cruel. It also prevented the weak sects from having any wishful thinking, so as not to waste the time of the archaic meeting. After Dujie Jinren finished speaking, the real host of the archaic meeting finally appeared. He was not an outsider. He was still an elder of the Qianquan sect, but his title was the Managing Elder of the Town of Ruins. The Town of Ruins was jointly controlled by the 4 big sects, so the Managing Elder was naturally a member of the 4 big sections. It was only because the Qianquan sect was strong that he occupied this position for a long time. This year, it was estimated that someone else would take over. Since Dujie Jinren has made it very clear, I will not say more. Is there anyone who wants to challenge the reserve qualification of the 10 small sects? The great elder of the Town of Ruins did not say any nonsense and went straight to the point. Ling Tianyu immediately raised his hand and said, "The Thousand Blades sect wants to challenge the reserve qualification." The great elder of the Town of Ruins glanced at Ling Tianyu and said, "The Thousand Blades sect wants to challenge? All right, the 5th reserve qualification is the 3C sect. The Thousand Blades sect can challenge." Many small sects and families were suddenly in an uproar. No one expected that the first to jump out was actually the Thousand Blade sect. Isn't the Thousand Blade sect only left with 2 people? How dare they come out to challenge? You are too ignorant. How can there be 2 people? There is clearly only 1.5, okay? Apart from Ling Tianyu, there is also a cripple. Even half is a bit too much. That should be the archaic undefeated, right? He doesn't look like a cripple, but there is really no aura on his body. Maybe his cultivation has been destroyed. Low murmurs of discussion could be heard, but Ling Tianyu was not affected in the slightest. He still looked as calm as ever. The Thousand Blade School's goal was to become one of the 10 minor ones. Ling Tianyu did not care about a mere reserve qualification. A disciple from the 3C sect stepped forward and sneered, "I was wondering who it was that wanted to challenge our 3C sect." "So it's sect master Ling Tianyu from the Thousand Blade sect. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Ling Tianyu, the lone sect leader. You've really overwhelmed our 3C sect. Ling Tianyu's expression didn't change. He said indifferently, "Don't be overwhelmed by the favor. You will be shocked very soon. Tell me, what are the rules of the challenge?" As the 10 candidates for the lowest level of the primeval grand meeting, the Big Four didn't spend any effort to prepare any challenges. They directly stipulated that the person being challenged would be the one to decide the challenge. That was why Ling Tianyu had asked the members of the 3C sect how to challenge their opponents. Without a doubt, the rules were still biased towards the challenged party. However, there were times when man's plans were not as good as God's. The disciple from the 3C's sect mocked, shocked. "I think you're here to die today, aren't you? A mere, perfected foundation establishment cultivator wants to carry the banner of the Thousand Blade sect? Forget it. Seeing how pitiful you are, I won't bully you today. Let's settle this in one battle." How do we settle this in one battle? Ling Tianyu was secretly delighted. Right now, the Thousand Blades sect only had 2 members. If the 3C's sect proposed a battle of numbers, it would be quite disadvantageous to the Thousand Blade sect. It would be great if they could decide the victor in a one-on-one battle. Indeed, things were developing in the direction that was most beneficial to the Thousand Blade sect. After the 3C's sect's disciple received the sect leader signal, he suggested a single battle between 2 nascent soul realm experts. If you want to become one of the 10, the minimum requirement is to have a nascent soul realm expert or a golden core realm expert with strength equivalent to a nascent soul realm expert. Since the Thousand Blades sect wants to challenge us, then bring out your strongest combat strength to settle this. The disciple's face was full of mockery. Although there was nothing wrong with his words, his tone was full of sarcasm. Everyone knew that the invincible primordial spirit of the Thousand Blades sect had been crippled by the Qinkuan sect. Otherwise, the Thousand Blades sect would not have been left with only 2 people. With such an opportunity, the 3C sect naturally would not let it go. With the reputation of the invincible primordial spirit, the 3C sect's nascent soul realm cultivator could still show off a little. This was a good plan. Unfortunately, the invincible primordial spirit was no longer the crippled, invincible primordial spirit. Instead, he had returned to his peak. The 3C sect's petty tricks played right into the Thousand Blades sect's hands. When he heard the challenge rules, Ling Tianyu almost jumped up and cheered. All right. Ling Tianyu suppressed the urge to laugh maniacally in his heart. Without batting an eyelid, he said, "Since you guys are the ones being challenged, the Thousand Blades sect naturally has no objections. Let's begin the challenge." Seeing Ling Tianyu's calm demeanor, the 3C sect felt a little uneasy. Ling Tianyu, who was at the Foundation Establishment Perfected level, would naturally not participate in the duel between nascent soul realm cultivators. That left only the invincible primordial spirit. The agreed duel was usually between cultivators of the same realm. Ling Tianyu was indeed not qualified to participate. Therefore, under the astonished gazes of the 3C sect, the invincible primordial spirit walked out leisurely. He said proudly, "I would like to see which nascent soul expert dares to challenge me one-on-one." Some of the spectators who did not know the truth immediately started to make a ruckus. "Look at that old man. He's really putting on a good show. If I didn't know that he was crippled, I would have been fooled by him. After all, he used to be a veteran at the nascent soul realm. He has been famous for a long time. Even if he's crippled, he can still put on airs." The spectators, who thought that they had seen through the secrets of the heavens, were just here to watch a show. In reality, they did not care whether the invincible primordial spirit was crippled or not. The most important thing was to watch a show. However, their discussion made the people of the 3C's sect secretly heave a sigh of relief. Initially, when they saw the invincible primordial spirit's arrogant behavior, the 3C's sect felt a little diffident. Now that they knew that he was just bluffing, there was nothing to be afraid of. "Ha ha ha ha, You really are a yawning toad. How arrogant. The Grand Supreme Elder of the Three Seas sect laughed loudly as he walked out to welcome the invincible primordial spirit. This was an expert who had just broken through to the nascent soul realm not too long ago. If the invincible primordial spirit had not been injured, he would not have dared to challenge the invincible primordial spirit, even if he was beaten to death. Chapter 5550. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. I've long heard that the Thousand Blade Sect's primordial invincible was the #1 nascent soul cultivator in the past. As a junior, I would like to ask for some advice. I hope that primordial invincible senior can show mercy. The face of the Three Seas sect's Grand Elder was filled with mockery. What senior? What leniency? Even a fool could tell that he was mocking the primordial invincibility. Primordial Invincible turned a deaf ear to the discussions below. He merely glanced at the Three Seas sect's great elder indifferently and said in disdain, "How dare a clown like you make such a ruckus?" Ha 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 ha. Primordial Invincible Senior really has the demeanor of an expert. Junior is so scared that I don't dare to move. Otherwise, you can come and hit me. Come on, come on. Don't be polite, bring out your full strength. The Grand Elder of the Three Seas sect was certain that Primordial Invincible did not have the ability to make a move. Hence, he was cheering rather happily. Primordial Invincible's brows twitched. As a senior expert, it would have been inappropriate for him to make the first move. However, since the other party was the one who requested it, Primordial Invincible couldn't very well give him face. This old man will fulfill your wish, Primordial Invincible said coldly as he casually sent out a stream of primary energy. In an instant, it struck the chest of the Three Seas sect's Supreme Elder. Before the astonished expression on the face of the Three Seas sect's Supreme Elder could be completely revealed, his entire body was sent flying, leaving behind a trail of blood droplets in the air. Love, go small, say, Netka by the time he landed on the ground. He was panting more than he was inhaling. Even though he wasn't dead, he was in a half-dead state. The entire place fell silent. The people who had been talking excitedly lowered their heads and shrunk back. They were afraid that Invincible Primeval would come after them. Primordial Invincible flicked his sleeves and said with a calm expression, "I've never seen someone so stupid." He actually begged for someone to beat him up. Fortunately, I didn't hear him use his full strength. He can't even take a little bit of it. How weak, my God! Invincible Primordial Senior has actually recovered. He's a genuine nascent soul cultivator. Incredible. Invincible Primordial Senior is truly mighty and domineering. The revival of the Thousand Blade sect is right in front of us. Invincible Immemorial Senior can definitely lead the Thousand Blades sect back to the 10 minor. After a moment of silence, those who had mocked the invincible primordial cultivators realized that they couldn't hide anymore. They were at the peak of the nascent soul realm. If they were targeted, there was a possibility of a massacre happening at any moment. Therefore, these people changed their tune and began to flatter Primeval Invincible loudly. Primeval Invincible had lost a lot of his arrogance after the previous setback. Naturally, he was a lot calmer. It didn't matter if those people were making fun of him or praising him. Primordial Invincible turned to look at the great elder of the ruined town. His lips curled into a smile as he said, "Is there any problem with our Thousand Blade School's reserve qualification?" The ruined town's great elder stole a glance at Sage Tribulation Transcendence. When he saw that Sage Tribulation Transcendence did not say anything, he immediately nodded and said, "There's no problem. The Thousand Blades sect defeated the Three Seas sect and became the 5th among the 10 minor substitutes. Are there any sects or clans who wish to challenge for the substitutes? You may continue now." As soon as he said that, the crowd fell into an awkward silence again. This challenge could only be challenged against the 5th reserve qualification. Moreover, the rules of the challenge were decided by the challenger. In other words, those who wanted to challenge now would almost certainly have to face the invincible, primordial cultivator at the peak of the nascent soul realm. Just look at the supreme elder of the 3 Seas sect, who is still vomiting blood on the ground. Who would be so free to challenge him? At that moment, Sage Tribulation Transcendence's heart was pounding. He subconsciously stole a glance at the Emerald Cloud sect. He would never believe that the invincible primordial cultivator's recovery had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Lin Yi was indeed strange. He could even heal the invincible primordial cultivator's injuries. Others might not know, but Sage Tribulation Transcendence definitely knew how serious the invincible primordial cultivator's injuries were. After all, apart from Sage Tribulation Transcendence, he had also contributed a lot to the invincible primordial cultivator's injuries. Is there no one else who wishes to challenge? In that case, the reserve qualification for the 10 aptitudes has been determined. The first to directly challenge the 10 aptitudes is the Tyrant's Blade sect. The next 2 to 4 are the 3 Talent sect, the Chu family, the Profound G sect, and the Thousand Blade sect. Now let the challenge of the 10 aptitudes begin. The MC expressionlessly announced the 5 sects that had obtained the reserve qualification, and then prepared for the challenge of the 10 aptitudes. Originally, with the strength of the Profound G sect, there was no way for them to obtain the reserve qualification. Seeing that Hong Xuanlei's attitude was not bad, Lin Yi gave a nascent soul golden pill to Hong Xianlei in the end, allowing him to advance to the nascent soul realm. In any case, he was an honorary Grand Elder. Without this strength, it was not impossible for the Profound G sect to return to the 10 aptitudes. With Lin Yi around, it would be easy to force the Profound G sect into the 10 aptitudes, but that would be somewhat unjustifiable. The Tyrant's Blade sect, which was ranked first, directly obtained the right to challenge. Wei Yidao walked out and said to Ling Tianyu with a hearty laugh, "Today has really broadened my horizons. Even 2 people's sects can enter the 10 aptitudes. But it doesn't matter. You will always be like this. If you are lucky enough to obtain the reserve qualification, you should be secretly happy for a long time, right? There is no hope for you in this year's archaic meeting. Next time, when you take in 1 or 2 more disciples, perhaps you will be able to improve further, right? Ha 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 ha. Wei Yidao, don't be too arrogant. Take care of yourself first. I am still waiting to challenge you. Don't lose." Ling Tianyu retorted without any trace of politeness. What he meant was that after the Tyrant's Blade sect successfully advanced to the 10 aptitudes, the Thousand Blade sect would once again knock the Tyrant's Blade sect down from the 10 aptitudes. If it wasn't for a deep hatred, they normally wouldn't do such a thing. Normally, after the immemorial Invincible sect recovered, the Tyrant's Blade sect shouldn't have the guts to continue provoking them. After all, the nascent soul old monsters of the Tyrant's Blade sect weren't at the great circle of the nascent soul realm. They were only at the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. However, Wei Yidao had done so. If there wasn't a problem with his brain, then he definitely had something to rely on. However, it was also possible that Wei Yidao still didn't know that the Qinkuan sect had suffered a loss. He thought that the Qinkuan sect had simply ignored the Thousand Blade sect and let them off. In any case, before the Tyrant's Blade sect successfully advanced to the 10 aptitudes, the Tyrant's Blade sect and the Thousand Blade sect wouldn't have any interaction. The host impatiently interrupted the war of words between Wei Yidao and Ling Tianyu. The 10 aptitudes challenge has begun. Does the Tyrant's Blade sect wish to challenge the clans of the 10 aptitudes? Or do you want to give up on this challenge? Wei Yidao hurriedly raised his hand and said, "The Tyrant's Blade sect wishes to challenge the Xuanyu sect of the 10 aptitudes." What a joke. It wasn't easy for them to obtain the right to challenge. How could they give up just like that? 5 chapters completed. School Bell's foreign chapters are currently being serialized. Please add the Fishman's official QQ account Fishman's second generation, and WeChat account 22. All kinds of activities will be held regularly. Autographed books will be sent non-stop. Chapter 55-51. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Any sect that wasn't one of the top 10 small sects, as long as they obtained the reserve qualification. Regardless of whether they had the strength or not, they would at least give it a try. What if they succeeded? All right, the challenge between the Tyrant's Blade School and the Xuanyu School will begin immediately. You all know the rules, right? The great elder of the ruined town nodded and continued. I will repeat the rules again. The rest of you, listen up. The rules of the 10 minor challenges this time are the same as before. There will still be 3 matches. Nascent Soul Stage, Golden Core Stage, and Foundation Establishment Stage will each have 1 match. 2 wins out of 3 matches. If the challenge was successful, the challenger would be promoted to the 10 small sects, and the one who was challenged would be the last candidate. If the challenges of the top 4 went smoothly, they would still have the chance to challenge the 10 small sects again, or they could choose to give up. The second substitute will be promoted to the first substitute and will continue to have the right to challenge the 10 kids, including those who have just been promoted. If the challenge fails, the order will not change. The second substitute will not have the right to challenge the 10 kids unless you choose to gamble. Do you understand? The great elder of the ruined town explained the rules unhurriedly. In fact, everyone knew that it was just a formality. Wei Yidao cupped his fists respectfully and bowed. Many thanks for First Elder's explanation. We all understand. The first match of the Tyrant Saber School's Foundation Establishment Cultivators will be this junior's match. The great elder of Ruined Town made a sound of acknowledgement, then turned to the Xuanyu School's side and said, Who will be participating in the Xuanyu School's Foundation Establishment Competition? Get on the stage now. Allow me. In Xuanyu Sect's camp, a perfected Foundation Establishment disciple stood up and walked up to the arena with an imposing manner. Love, go, small, say, Neku, Xuanyu Sect's Yu Lingfeng has come to accept the challenge. Yu Lingfeng said expressionlessly, but his eyes revealed traces of anger. Although the High Feather School was one of the weaker sects among the 10 minor sects, they were not the weakest of the 10 minor sects. The Tyrant Blade School had chosen the High Feather School right from the start. They had really underestimated the High Feather School. It would be strange if Yu Lingfeng treated Wei Yidao nicely. Wei Yidao shrugged his shoulders and let out a strange laugh. What a frightening aura. I wonder what will happen when they fight. It would be great if he wasn't just a paper tiger that was bluffing. Tyrant Blade Sect's Wei Yidao. Before his voice faded away, Wei Yidao pulled out his thick-backed long saber with a shake of his hand and swung it toward Yu Lingfeng's body. The great elder of the ruined town raised his eyebrows slightly. He had not announced the start of the fight, but Wei Yidao had already made the first move. Strictly speaking, this was against the rules. However, the great elder of the ruined town was originally a member of the Qinkuan sect, and the Tyrant Blade School was a branch of the Qinkuan sect. Of course, he would ignore such a small detail if he could. Yu Lingfeng narrowed his eyes. Even though he didn't expect Wei Yidao to suddenly attack, he didn't panic in the slightest. With a light tap of his foot, he flew into the air. At the same time, he raised his hands and dozens of steel-short feathers shot out. Wei Yidao's long saber moved horizontally and horizontally. The momentum of the saber was fierce and tyrannical. It was worthy of the name tyrannical. Before Yu Lingfeng's steel-short feathers could get close, they were engulfed by the momentum of Wei Yidao's saber and completely lost their accuracy. Petty tricks. Is this all the Xuanyu School can do? Wei Yidao laughed crazily as he stepped forward. The momentum of his saber increased once again. The steel-short feathers that were engulfed by the saber all fell to the ground. They didn't even have the ability to stop Wei Yidao. However, Yu Lingfeng, who was in the air, didn't show any signs of panic. Instead, There was a faint, mocking smile on his face. With a shake of his hands, his body, which had already started to fall, suddenly shot up again. It was as if he had a pair of invisible wings on his back. Light feather arrow. Yu Lingfeng ignored Wei Yidao's provocation. He only let out a low roar, and the true energy in his body surged. The steel short feathers that had been engulfed by Wei Yidao's saber actually flew up from the ground and towards Wei Yidao again. Not only that, the steel short feathers that flew up again gave off a faint white light. Whether it was speed or strength, they were more than twice as strong as before. In an instant, the steel short feathers were within half a foot of Wei Yidao's body. If there were no changes, Wei Yidao's body would immediately have dozens of bloody holes. Haha, interesting. Facing this kind of danger, Wei Yidao actually laughed twice. The saber in his hand did not change direction, but his feet moved strangely a few times. With just a slight movement of his body, Yu Lingfeng's light feather arrow flew past Wei Yidao's body. The closest one even scratched Wei Yidao's clothes, leaving a small hole. However, it still didn't hurt Wei Yidao in the slightest. In the air, Yu Lingfeng's expression finally changed slightly. At this time, Wei Yidao's saber, which carried an unparalleled saber momentum, had already closed in on Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng could only shake his arms again and change his body in the air for the second time. This was already his limit. No matter how agile the Xian Yu sect's movement technique was, Yu Lingfeng was still only at the foundation establishment stage. If he still couldn't shake off Wei Yidao's pursuit, then he could only face Wei Yidao's saber head-on. In order to save his life, Yu Lingfeng roared as he changed his body. Turn! The fine steel short feathers that flew past Wei Yidao immediately turned around nimbly, like fish in water, and shot towards Wei Yidao again. At such a close distance, Yu Lingfeng didn't believe that Wei Yidao could use his footwork to dodge. Even if he could dodge, it would definitely affect his saber momentum. In that case, it would at least give Yu Lingfeng a chance to catch his breath. Wei Yidao laughed disdainfully. Have you exhausted your limited abilities? Then there's nothing fun to do. As he spoke, the saber momentum didn't change. After a slight adjustment, it continued to chase after Yu Lingfeng. As for the fine steel short feathers that turned into light feather arrows, Wei Yidao didn't continue to use his footwork to dodge. Instead, he held the saber sheath in his left hand and used it as a saber to slash again. The ferocious saber momentum instantly split the air in front of Wei Yidao, emitting a violent sonic boom. The fine steel short feathers that were flying towards Yu Lingfeng were completely cut off by this saber. One by one, they bounced off to both sides. Some of them were even directly chopped into pieces by the saber momentum. Yu Lingfeng's expression finally changed completely. He thought that Wei Yidao's previous saber strike was the result of him going all out. He didn't expect it to be completely different. From this saber strike, it could be seen that Wei Yidao had held back a lot of strength. In other words, this saber strike that chased after Yu Lingfeng was just a casual strike from Wei Yidao. When did Wei Yidao of the Tyrant Saber sect become so powerful? With this kind of strength, even if he were to cross realms to deal with a weaker early-stage gold core cultivator, it wouldn't be a problem, right? These thoughts only flashed through Yu Lingfeng's mind in a flash. Then, Wei Yidao's saber had already arrived in front of him. There was no way to dodge, no way to retreat. Number 3. Still 5 chapters. School Bell's foreign chapters are currently being serialized. Please add me to the Fishman QQ Gods public account, Fishman2, and the WeChat public account Urine22. All kinds of activities are regularly held, and autographed books are constantly being sent. Chapter 5552. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. Talk Net, providing you with exciting novels to read. Yu Lingfeng let out a long sigh. He knew he had lost. The only thing he could hope for now was to stay alive. Love, go, Small, talk, neck more than 10 shiny steel feathers shot out from his sleeves like lightning. This was Yu Lingfeng's last resort. He didn't want to hurt his opponent. He only wanted to protect himself. These steel feathers formed a small shield in front of Yu Lingfeng. However, against Wei Yidao's long sword, it didn't even hinder it for a moment. It only reduced the strength of the long sword slightly. However, Yu Lingfeng was already very satisfied. It was precisely this slight reduction in strength that gave him a chance to survive. Wei Yidao was originally attacking with half of his strength, and he was also splitting his attention to do two things at the same time. After being slightly blocked by these fine steel shore feathers, the long blade was only able to cut off Yu Lingfeng's left arm. Yu Lingfeng took the opportunity to retreat, directly falling out of the arena. According to the rules, falling out of the arena meant that the winner was determined. The winner could not continue attacking. Tyrant's Blade Sect challenges Xianyu Sect, one of the 10 minor sections. Tyrant's Blade Sect wins the first match of the foundational stage. The great elder of Ruined Town didn't show any change in his expression as he announced the result in a rather formal manner. The crowd was in an uproar. No one had expected Yu Lingfeng to lose so quickly. It seemed like a lot of time had passed, but the truth was that the outcome had been decided within a breath's time. Those who were weaker could only see Wei Yidao's blade, Yu Lingfeng flying back to counterattack, and then his left arm being cut off. The entire battle was over. As for the changes that happened, they couldn't see them clearly at all. Love, go, small, talk, Netku. After recovering from their shock, the people of the Xuanyu sect immediately rushed out to help Yu Lingfeng up and put his severed arm back. As long as there were good pills and a good doctor, this severed arm could be reattached and it would not affect him too much in the future. The problem was that they had lost this battle too quickly. Yu Lingfeng was not a nobody. Among the disciples who had completed the foundation establishment stage, he could be ranked in the top 10 in the entire ancient Jianghu. At this level, there would not be too much of a difference. However, Wei Yidao had clearly overturned this concept. On the stage, Wei Yidao laughed heartily as he sheathed his saber. He had a high-spirited and complacent appearance. Then he looked at Yu Lingfeng with disdain and shook his head lightly. Yu Lingfeng, your reputation is not as good as meeting you in person. Fortunately, Yu Lingfeng had fainted when he fell. Otherwise, he might have vomited blood after being ridiculed by Wei Yidao. From the Xuanyu sect side, a cultivator at the Golden Elixir Realm with a gloomy face walked out. He was Yu Lingfeng's uncle, Yu Jintian. Seeing that his nephew's arm had been chopped off, Yu Jintian wanted to kill Wei Yidao immediately. Scram! Let your Jindan come up. After stepping onto the stage, Yu Jintian let out a low shout. If it wasn't for the fact that they were on the stage of the ancient grand meeting, he would have already attacked the arrogant Wei Yidao. Love, go, small, say, Wei Yidao laughed heartily and said, You really scared me to death. Jindan Great Circle is so powerful. It's as if every family doesn't have a perfected golden core. Yu Jintian's expression was extremely unsightly. Although the great elder of the ruins town was biased towards the Tyrant Blade School, he did not wish to see the profound Feather School suffer too much. Otherwise, the Qinkuan school would be targeted by the other schools in the end. Wei Yidao stepped down. Let your sect's gold core realm cultivator come up. The great elder of the ruins town said indifferently. In any case, it could be considered as appeasing Yu Jintian. Of course, Wei Yidao would not disobey the words of the great elder of the ruins town. He immediately cupped his hands and said, I was just about to step down. Thank you, great elder. After saying that, Wei Yidao threw a disdainful look at Yu Jintian. Then he turned his head and walked down. Fortunately, Yu Jintian was not provoked by Wei Yidao this time. There was going to be a huge battle soon. After the battle between Wei Yidao and Yu Lingfeng, Yu Jintian no longer dared to be careless. As expected in the following battle, the Golden Core Realm cultivator from the Tyrant Blade School easily defeated Yu Jintian again. The only difference was that Yu Jintian returned in one piece. He did not lose an arm or a leg like his nephew. At this moment, the spectators were in an even greater uproar. The Tyrant Saber School was indeed a powerful sect. However, they had never heard of their members being this powerful. They were practically invincible among those of the same cultivation level. No matter what, the Profound Feather School was one of the 10 small schools. How could they be defeated in such a way? If that was the case, how many of the 10 small schools could be a match for the Tyrant Blade School? The great elder of the ruins town still had an indifferent expression. He announced indifferently, the Tyrant Blade School has challenged the 10 small schools. The Tyrant Blade School has won the second round of the Golden Core Realm competition. According to the rules, there is no need to continue the third round. The Tyrant Blade School will replace the Profound Feather School as one of the 10 small schools. The Profound Feather School will drop to the 5th reserve position and wait for an opportunity to challenge. The people from the Profound Feather School looked at the cheering Tyrant Blade School with grief and indignation. However, there was nothing they could do. Their skills were inferior. What else could they do? Now, they could only hope for an opportunity to challenge again. Perhaps there was a chance for them to return to the 10 small schools. If they had to bet on a battle, 1,000 spiritual jade was not a small number for the Profound Feather School. It was not an amount that they could take out easily. Lin Yi looked at Wei Yi Dao thoughtfully. To be honest, the combat strength that the Tyrant Blade School had displayed had indeed surprised Lin Yi. Of course, this was nothing to Lin Yi. Fortunately, the Tyrant Blade School's combat strength should have increased with the help of the Qinkuan sect. This was not strange. As long as they did not have anything to do with the center, Lin Yi did not care too much. However, the center had been too quiet recently. Would the center not interfere in an event like the primordial meeting? Just as Lin Yi was thinking about the center, the second reserve position, the 3 talent sect also began to challenge the 10 small schools. As the Tyrant Blade School had succeeded in their challenge, the 3 talent sect naturally rose to the first position and obtained the right to directly challenge the 10 small schools. The 3 talent sect chose to challenge the 6 harmony sect. These 2 sects were originally one family thousands of years ago. However, they later fell out and became enemies. As a result, the enmity had not been resolved for thousands of years. However, the 6 harmony sect's strength was obviously a level higher. The 6 harmony sect won 2 consecutive matches. There was no need to continue the third match. The 3 talent sect has failed in their challenge against the 6 harmony sect. All the reserve positions have lost the right to challenge. Does the Chu family want to challenge the 10 small schools by betting? If you want to bet, please take out 1,000 spiritual jades first. The great elder of the ruins town glanced at the 3 talent sect that had failed and looked directly at the Chu family. This time, the Chu family had sent out all their elites. The leader was naturally Chu Yuntian, the great elder. The great elder Chu Yunting and the patriarch Chu Tianlu had also come. In addition, there were 8 golden core stage experts. In order to get into the 10 small schools, the Chu family had always kept a low profile and hid their strength. They only said that they had 2 or 3 golden core stage experts, but in reality, they had more than 10 golden core stage experts. School Bell's foreign story is currently being serialized. Please add the Fishman QQ Gods official account, Fishman2, and the WeChat official account, Urine22. All kinds of activities are held regularly, and autographed books are sent continuously. Chapter 55-53. Genius in 1 second. Remember to go away. Shuat.net, providing you with wonderful novel reading. In terms of strength, the Chu family definitely had the ability to occupy a place in the 10 little ones. But now that they had lost the right to challenge, they could only choose a wagered battle. Chu Yuntian was distressed. 1,000 spiritual jades. Whether they won or lost, they couldn't get the 1,000 spiritual jades back. After coming to Ruins Town, Chu Yuntian and the others also visited Lin. Although Lin didn't say anything, someone would leak some information. The Blue Cloud School's goal was the 4 little ones. In other words, even if the Chu family gave up the challenge, in the end, Lin might have the ability to let the Chu family enter the 10 little ones. Even if that wasn't glorious, Chu Yuntian felt that compared to 1,000 spiritual jades, it wasn't a big deal. Does the Chu family want a wagered battle? If you don't, then quickly give up. The great elder of Ruins Town urged impatiently. The Chu family, Xuanji School, and Thousand Blade School were all related to Lin Yi. As a member of Qin Kuan's school sent to Ruins Town, the great elder of Ruins Town naturally wouldn't treat the Chu family well. Chu Yuntian was still hesitating, but Chu Tianlu raised his voice and said, "Of course, we want a wagered battle. If we don't want a place in the 10 little ones, who would fight for this reserve qualification? However, we don't have 1,000 spiritual jades right now. Please wait a moment and let the Chu family gather enough spiritual jades. In any case, there's no need to follow any order for the wagered battle. Those who want a wagered battle later can start first." Since Chu Tianlu, the head of the family, had spoken, Chu Yuntian had no choice but to accept. After all, because of Lin Yi, Chu Tianlu's words held great weight in the Chu family. This kind of thing was completely decided by Chu Tianlu. Lin Yi nodded approvingly at Chu Tianlu. During the time he came to Ruins Town, he had only seen Chu Tianlu and the others in a hurry. There were too many things to take care of the Chu family. However, Lin Yi was still at ease with the Chu family's strength. As long as they performed normally, it wouldn't be a big problem for the Chu family to enter the 10 little ones. As for the small amount of spiritual jades, Lin Yi did not care about it at all. As long as the Chu clan needed it, Lin Yi could pay for them at any time. Even the Profound Secrets sect would do the same. The only exception was the Thousand Blades faction. Lin Yi had already given the spirit jades to Ling Tianyu. Given the Thousand Blades faction situation, Lin Yi had long expected that the Thousand Blades faction would not be qualified to challenge the Thousand Blades faction. Sure enough, this was the result. The first elder of the ruined town glanced at Du Jiejinren. Seeing that Du Jiejinren had no intention of objecting, he nodded and said, "Fine. Although it's against the rules, since Master Chu has brought it up, I'll make an exception. Does the Xuanji sect behind want to have a duel?" Hong Xianlei hesitated for a moment. After watching the previous 2 battles, Hong Xianlei was still a little hesitant about whether the Xuanji sect could defeat the 10 small sections. After all, he was the only golden core perfection cultivator in the Xuanji sect. Now that he had advanced to the nascent soul realm, there was no golden core perfection cultivator left. Love go small, say Nekuin this way, in the battle of the golden core realm. There was basically not much chance of winning. In the battle of the nascent soul realm, he had just broken through to the early stage of the nascent soul realm and had not yet stabilized his strength. It would be pure self-deception to say that he was confident. However, the matters of the Xuanji sect were no longer up to him to decide. Now, Hong Xuanlei's situation was somewhat similar to Chu Yuntian's. No matter what he thought, the final decision was still made by Li Yunjia. Li Yunjia saw the encouraging look in Lin Yi's eyes and had nothing else to say. He immediately decided to participate in the duel. The problem was that the Xuanji sect did not have much savings. After purchasing some things in the market, they could not take out 1,000 spirit jades for the time being. With the Chu family as an example, the Profound Secrets sect decided to wait for a while. The Grand Elder of Ruins Town did not dislike collecting spirit jades. After all, if they failed the challenge, the spirit jades would belong to the Grand Assembly of Ruins Town. Even though it would be split equally among the 4 families, it was still a decent sum of money. Since the Chu family and the Xuanji sect both want to collect spirit jades for the duel, then just wait for a while. If you don't have enough spirit jades in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the 10 minor challenge will officially end. Both of you should pay attention to the time. The first elder of the ruined town gave a very formal reminder. He was about to ask if the Xuanyu school, which had just fallen from the 10 minor challenge, wanted to participate in the duel. Seeing that the first elder had no intention of asking the Thousand Blade School, Ling Tianyu immediately stood up and said loudly, "First elder, why don't you ask if our Thousand Blade School wants to participate in the duel?" The first elder of the ruined town was startled. "You want a duel?" The spectators below started whispering again. They did not dare to speak too loudly because of the invincible, primeval, realm great, circle, nascent soul stage. But they still had to discuss quietly. It was not unreasonable for the first elder of the ruined town to directly ignore the Thousand Blade School. There were only 2 people in the Thousand Blade School. But if they wanted to challenge the 10 minor challenges, they would need at least 3 people to sign up, right? Moreover, it was not easy for the Thousand Blade School to obtain a reserve qualification. Logically speaking, it was unlikely that they would directly challenge the 10 minor challenges this time. They should accumulate their strength and wait for the next immemorial grand meeting. But looking at Ling Tianyu, it seemed that they could not wait for the next time. "Can't our Thousand Blades School have a duel?" Ling Tianyu said with some displeasure. The first elder of the ruined town waved his hand. "That's not the case. Since the Thousand Blade School has a reserve qualification, of course they can participate in the duel. But you only have 2 people now. Do you want to recruit one? This is not in line with the rules. Or do you want to directly give up on the Gold Core Challenge? Do you want to treat it as a loss before it even starts?" It was impossible to cancel the Golden Core Arena and replace it with a foundation establishment or nascent soul stage. Whether it was Ling Tianyu or Invincible Primeval, they were almost invincible in the same realm. It would be unfair for them to fight 2 foundation establishment or 2 nascent soul stage. The first elder of the ruined town would never agree to such a proposal, so he could only let the Thousand Blade School admit defeat first. But in this way, the challenge sect only needed to win 1 match to win all the matches, while the Thousand Blade School had to ensure that they won both matches without the slightest mistake. After listening to the first elder of the ruined town, Ling Tianyu put forward the suggestion he had already considered. "Our Thousand Blade School will not admit defeat. 3 matches are still 3 matches. I will fight in the Golden Core Arena. Even if we are no match for them, we will definitely not retreat. Are you sure you want to do this?" The first elder of the ruined town, who had always been expressionless, showed a very surprised look. He continued to ask, "Do you know what this means? You are a cultivator in the great perfection of the foundation establishment realm. No matter how strong you are, you will definitely be killed in a second when facing a cultivator in the great perfection of the Golden Core realm. I have never heard of such a thing. If you admit defeat at that time, you may not have a chance." School Bell's foreign story is being serialized. Please add the Fishman's QQ God public account, Fishman2, and WeChat public account Urine22. Various activities are held regularly and autographed books are sent continuously. Chapter 5554. Genius 1 second, remember if you want to go. Talk Net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. "Thank you, great elder, but I have decided," Ling Tianyu said unwaveringly. He could vaguely feel that he was about to break through. If he really faced Jindan consummation, the pressure between life and death was likely to make him break through. For a genius like Ling Tianyu, elixirs were indeed very effective, but he could still break through without elixirs. Moreover, Ling Tianyu was not worried that he would be killed in a second. With Lin Yi by his side, it was simply impossible for a mere Jindan consummation to kill Ling Tianyu in a second. The great elder of the ruins town took a deep look at Ling Tianyu and nodded lightly. "In that case, it is decided. Your Thousand Blades faction will take out 1,000 spiritual jades, and we can start the duel." Lin Yi had already prepared 1,000 spiritual jades for them. After Ling Tianyu handed it to the great elder, he pointed at Wei Yidao and said, "Thousand Blades faction challenges Hegemon Blade School. Wei Yidao, come out." "How dare you? There is a road to heaven, but you choose to break into the gate of hell." Wei Yidao laughed and stood up. He pointed at Ling Tianyu and said, "Since you are so eager to die, I will fulfill your wish." As soon as he stepped onto the arena, Wei Yidao unsheathed his thick-backed long saber. The saber light soared into the sky, and the momentum of the saber was more violent than when he fought with Yu Lingfeng. Obviously, Wei Yidao did not dare to be careless in the battle against Ling Tianyu. Ling Tianyu snorted coldly. Numerous flying needles flew up and formed 2 silver flying swords in the air. They met Wei Yidao's long saber with the momentum of 2 dragons coming out of the sea. "Love, go, little, say, neck the dents," sounds of metal colliding rang out. Ling Tianyu did not stay in the same place. His figure moved like a fleeing rabbit, and he quickly changed his position. While controlling the flying needles, he used his fists and feet to launch sneak attacks on Wei Yidao. "Ha ha ha, Ling Tianyu, is that all you have? You actually dare to challenge me. If you have no new moves, then just wait for your death." Wei Yidao laughed maniacally. His saber force surged once again. The 2 flying swords formed by the flying needles were instantly shattered and turned back into flying needles. Ling Tianyu's complexion changed slightly. From the battle between Wei Yidao and Yu Lingfeng just now, Ling Tianyu discovered that Wei Yidao's saber momentum could restrain his 1,000 flying blades. In theory, Yu Lingfeng's light feather arrow was somewhat similar to the 1,000 flying blades. Therefore, Ling Tianyu had condensed the 1,000 flying blades together from the start. He didn't expect that it would still be scattered by Wei Yidao. Wei Yidao's arrogance was not without reason. Ling Tianyu had already overestimated Wei Yidao, but in the end he still underestimated him. "Ling Tianyu, are you just going to wait for death? Ha 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 ha. This young master really overestimated you. Turns out that you're just a good-for-nothing." After Wei Yidao shattered Ling Tianyu's flying swords, his saber momentum had completely locked onto Ling Tianyu. Compared to Yu Lingfeng, Ling Tianyu's movement technique was really not worth mentioning. "Love, go, small, say, Netku." If Ling Tianyu didn't have any other tricks up his sleeves, he would have been cut down by Wei Yidao's saber in a breath's time. After all, Wei Yidao had gone all out this time, which was completely different from when he was facing Yu Lingfeng. Ling Tianyu's eyes narrowed, and he quickly retreated. At the same time, he recalled the 1,000 flying needles to his side, forming a needle wall in front of him to block Wei Yidao's long saber. The needle wall had just been formed when Wei Yidao's long saber had already chopped down. Sparks splashed and silver light scattered in all directions. A black dagger suddenly flew out from behind the needle wall. Wei Yidao's tyrannical saber momentum could not stop this black dagger at all, just like how water could not stop a swimming fish. Ling Tianyu let the black dagger stab straight into his heart. "You tricked me." Wei Yidao was shocked and angry at the same time. He really didn't expect Ling Tianyu to have such a trick up his sleeve. Not only could his saber momentum not block it, but his protective chi could also not block the black dagger. By the time Wei Yidao reacted, it was already too late to dodge. At this time, Wei Yidao finally understood that the needle wall used to block the long saber was completely to cover up the sneak attack of the black dagger. At such a close distance, the black dagger could hit its target in one shot. For this attack, Ling Tianyu also threw caution to the wind. Wei Yidao's long saber had already chopped down. At this time, it was already impossible to determine who would be hit first, or both of them would be hit at the same time and perish together. Wei Yidao deserved to be a ruthless person. He was ruthless to the enemy and also to himself. Seeing that he could not avoid the black dagger, Wei Yidao simply protected his vital parts and poured his chi into the long saber without reservation. He wanted to kill Ling Tianyu on the spot before he was injured. Ling Tianyu's eyes were cold, and he focused all his attention on controlling the black dagger. Those flying needles had completed their mission, so Ling Tianyu had given up on controlling them at this time. Facing Wei Yidao's mutually destructive fighting style, Ling Tianyu also showed absolute toughness. On the premise that his control of the black dagger was not affected, Ling Tianyu tried his best to dodge to the side. If he gave up controlling the dagger, he might be able to completely avoid Wei Yidao's saber momentum. But Ling Tianyu obviously did not want to give up this opportunity. Once Wei Yidao got a chance to breathe, the outcome of the battle would become unpredictable again. Life and death were decided in an instant. Both of them shouted at the same time, "Kill!" Almost at the same time, the black dagger and the long saber hit their respective targets at the same time. A huge saber mark, so deep that bones could be seen, ran from Ling Tianyu's left shoulder to his waist. If Ling Tianyu had not been wearing the soft armor of the Thousand Blade sect, Wei Yidao's saber might have directly chopped him into two halves. Wei Yidao was not in a good situation either. Under Ling Tianyu's control, the black dagger flashed past the sheath that Wei Yidao used to defend and directly pierced through Wei Yidao's left chest, then flew out from his back. Originally, Ling Tianyu wanted to turn around and attack from the back again, but because he had been hit by Wei Yidao, he could not continue to control the black dagger. Wei Yidao spat out a mouthful of blood. He could no longer hold on to the long saber, and it fell directly onto the stage. At the same time, his legs gave way and he knelt on the ground. From the appearance of their injuries, it was obvious that Ling Tianyu had more visual impact, but Wei Yidao's heart meridian was injured by the black dagger. Although the black dagger, which was aimed at his heart, was slightly deflected by Wei Yidao at the last moment, it still rushed past the edge of his heart. Ling Tianyu, on the other hand, only looked seriously injured. Because his armor had blocked most of the attack, he actually did not receive a fatal blow. This could be seen from the fact that one of them was still standing straight, while the other was kneeling on the ground. However, the great elder of Ruins Town, who was biased towards the Hegemon's saber school, did not think so. Chapter 55. Genius 1 second, remember if you want to go. Talk.net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. The audience was in an uproar. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Wei Yidao's injuries were so serious that he couldn't stand up again. Although he hadn't completely collapsed, since he couldn't stand up, it should be a loss. A draw? What the hell was that? Even if the great elder of the Ruins Town was from the Qiankuan sect, the law didn't punish the masses. Everyone was talking about it, and they weren't afraid of being targeted by the Qiankuan sect. Primordial Invincible Spirit immediately jumped onto the arena and sneered. A draw? Our Thousand Blades sect doesn't agree. Let Wei Yidao stand up and continue the fight. The great elder of the Ruins Town was stunned. Whether Ling Tianyu could continue fighting or not, at least it seemed that Wei Yidao couldn't. Ling Tianyu smiled weakly and said, "Invincible Patriarch, it's good for Wei Yidao to kneel like this. Don't you see that he's kowtowing and apologizing to us?" Haha, that's right. Primordial Invincible Spirit was amused. Wei Yidao was kneeling on the ground with his hands supporting his body, and he happened to be facing Ling Tianyu. It wasn't wrong to say that he was kowtowing and apologizing. Wei Yidao was so angry that he couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of blood. The last trace of his strength was completely exhausted with this mouthful of blood, and his body softly fell to the ground. "Love, go, little, say, Netka this time." The great elder of the Ruins Town had nothing to say. Under Primordial Invincible Spirit's mocking gaze, he could only announce with a frosty face, "Wei Yidao is unable to fight anymore. The Thousand Blades sect challenges the Tyrant Blade sect." In the first match of foundation building, Ling Tianyu of the Thousand Blades sect wins. If he knew that Wei Yidao was so easily provoked, the great elder of the ruined town wouldn't be so biased towards him. In the end, he became a villain in vain and was secretly mocked by the audience. Tianyu, are you okay? After the result came out, Primordial Invincible Spirit immediately supported Ling Tianyu, who was on the verge of collapse, and stuffed a 5th grade recover pill into his mouth. These were the backup elixirs that Lin Yi had prepared for them. Naturally, they were all of the best quality. Ling Tianyu's injuries looked serious, but under the effect of the great cyclic elixir, he was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Disciple is fine. There is no need to worry, invincible patriarch. Ling Tianyu's complexion looked much better. At the very least, some color had returned to his face. The members of the Hegemon's Blade sect quickly went up the stage to bring Wei Yidao back and treat him. As for the great elder of the ruined town, he coldly stared at Primeval Invincible and Ling Tianyu in a businesslike manner. Next is the battle of the Golden Core stage. Is the Thousand Blades sect ready? The people of the Tyrant's Saber School had not even come up, yet the great elder of ruined town had already started pressing the Thousand Blade School. Clearly he was very displeased. Love, go, small, say, Netku before Primordial Invincible could say anything. Shangguan Qinyan, who was by the side, said indifferently, "Can you see that he hasn't recovered from his injuries? Also, after a big battle just now, they're going to fight someone of a higher level. Where is the fairness of the Archean Grand Meeting?" The great elder of the ruined town's face darkened. He could ignore the words of others, but Shangguan Qinyan was different. He knew that the Qiankuan sect had suffered losses at the hands of the Shangguan family. He could only force a smile and say, "What does the master of the Shangguan family mean?" Do you still need to ask? Let's start the battle of the nascent soul stage first, and then the golden core stage. At least let them rest and take a breather, right? Shangguan Qinyan said matter-of-factly. In name, the Shangguan family was the backing of the Thousand Blade School. There was no problem for them to say a few words of fairness at this time. Therefore, the people below the stage did not find it strange at all. Moreover, Shangguan Qinyan's proposal was also reasonable. There was nothing wrong with it. Although the great elder of the ruined town wanted Ling Tianyu to immediately fight in the Golden Core stage and then be instantly killed, since Shangguan Qinyan had said so, it was clearly not something he could decide. Sneaking a glance at Sage Overcoming Calamity, and seeing that Sage Overcoming Calamity had no intention of objecting, the great elder of the ruined town could only nod and say, "In that case, let's start the battle of the nascent soul stage first. Let's invite the nascent soul stage from the Thousand Blade School and the Hegemon's Blade School." Primordial Invincible cupped his hands at Shangguan Qinyan and said, "Thank you, master of the Shangguan family, for speaking up for justice." Shangguan Qinyan smiled and waved his hand, saying, "You're too polite, brother Primordial. As long as you can win this battle, you can be promoted to the 10 youngsters. I wish brother Primordial a victory in advance." "Thank you for your auspicious words." Primordial Invincible smiled and nodded. He was very confident about this battle. After all, he was once the #1 nascent soul cultivator in the ancient underworld. Even now, the number of people who could defeat him would not exceed the fingers on one hand. But this definitely did not include the nascent soul old monsters of the Hegemon's Blade School. Just like what Shangguan Qinyan said, as long as he won this battle, there was no need for Ling Tianyu to continue with the Gold Core Realm battle. Ling Tianyu returned to the seats of the Thousand Blade School and sat down. He closed his eyes and entered into a state of cultivation. Firstly, he wanted to recover from his injuries as soon as possible. Secondly, he wanted to try to make a breakthrough. The moment of life and death just now had given him a lot of inspiration. Perhaps he could step into the Gold Core Realm. In fact, it was not a good time to enter the Gold Core Realm now. Ling Tianyu believed that Primordial Invincible could win this nascent soul realm battle. Hence, the Thousand Blade School would continue to be challenged by other sections. At that time, Ling Tianyu, who had just advanced to the Gold Core realm, would obviously be targeted. Moreover, without a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, Ling Tianyu could not lower his cultivation level and could only give up on the Foundation Establishment realm battle. With these concerns, Ling Tianyu could only try to step into the Gold Core realm first, but he would not easily take the last step. On the arena, the Supreme Elder of the Hegemon's Blade School, Wei Tianba, walked slowly. Every step he took caused his aura to increase. However, Wei Tianba was only in the mid-nascent soul realm. No matter how much his aura increased, Primordial Invincible did not take him seriously. The light of a firefly dares to compete with the light of the moon. Primordial Invincible smiled proudly and let Wei Tianba slowly walk onto the arena. He would not be like Wei Yidao, who did not even greet him and directly attacked with his saber. Wei Tianba laughed loudly and said, "Primordial Invincible, your name was indeed as bright as the moon in the past. Unfortunately, it is no longer your era. You, Primordial Invincible, want to dominate the small immemorial underworld again. I'm afraid there is no hope." Primordial Invincible sneered and said, "Even if this old man cannot dominate the small immemorial underworld again, it is not a problem to deal with an ant like you." A mid-nascent soul realm cultivator was indeed a rare expert. However, in front of Primordial Invincible, a peak nascent soul realm cultivator, he was indeed an ant. At most, he was a slightly stronger ant. Who is the ant? We will soon know. Wei Tianba suddenly laughed sinisterly. He stood about 1 zhang away from Primordial Invincible, raised his left hand, and threw a bronze mirror above Primordial Invincible. Primordial Invincible's expression suddenly changed, and he cried out in alarm, "True Illusion Mirror!" School Bell's foreign story is currently being serialized. Please add me on the QQ public account, Fishman 2nd Generation, and the WeChat public account Urine 22. All kinds of activities are regularly held. Autographed books are constantly being sent. Chapter 55-56. Before he finished speaking, the bronze mirror in the air shone brightly and completely enveloped Primordial Invincible. Even if Primordial Invincible was at the great perfection of the nascent soul realm, it was impossible for him to dodge the light. Fortunately, the light did not harm Primordial Invincible, who was enveloped by it was not hurt at all. However, Primordial Invincible's expression was much worse than if he had been slashed by Wei Tianba. Lin Yi frowned slightly and asked Exionejia in a low voice, "What is the Phantasm Mirror? Are there any rules that prohibit the use of tools?" It was obviously impossible to say that the bronze mirror was a weapon. It could only be a tool, similar to the shape-shifting urn that Chu Tianliang used before. Exionejia also lowered his voice and said, "The Phantasm Mirror is a precious one-time tool. It can replicate a real phantom in a short period of time. The phantom strength is almost equal to the original body. The Archean Grand Meeting does not prohibit the use of such tools." Lin Yi nodded, and his expression became a little serious. From Exionejia's description, he could already see Primordial Invincible's predicament. What Exionejia did not mention was that under normal circumstances, such precious tools were used to protect one's life. Few people would use them in a battle. However, they were competing for the 10 small ones. Moreover, the grudge between the 1,000 Blade sect and the Hegemon's Blade sect could not be resolved. If Wei Tianba took the opportunity to kill Primordial Invincible, it would not be a waste. At that moment, the light on the arena suddenly split into 2. Then the bronze mirror in the air made a crisp, cracking sound and turned into glittering fragments. They completely disappeared before falling to the ground. 2 identical figures vaguely appeared in the 2 pillars of light. Wei Tianba chuckled and said, "Primordial Invincible, let me see how powerful you are now." Before he finished speaking, the replicated Primordial Invincible in the pillar of light that appeared later attacked Primordial Invincible's original body with great force. Wei Tianba did not intend to just wait. He drew his long saber and attacked Primordial Invincible from the side. If it was a head-on battle, Wei Tianba would definitely not be Primordial Invincible's opponent. However, Wei Tianba was only supporting from the side. The main attacker was Primordial Invincible's clone. Its strength was almost the same as Primordial Invincible's. The power produced was completely different from the original calculation. Grandmaster, it seems that Primordial Invincible is going to lose. Although the Phantasm Mirror can only last for a short period of time, the clone can only exist for 3 minutes. But with Wei Tianba's cooperation, the outcome is very likely. Xianijia said softly. He knew what Lin Yi was thinking. If the Thousand Blades faction failed, Lin Yi could only push the Thousand Blades faction to the top after he became one of the Big Four. In that case, the Thousand Blades sect would not be able to convince the masses, and the Jadian sect would also be criticized by many sections. Once Lin Yi returned to Sky Tier Island, all the pressure would fall on Xianijia. I know. Let's not worry about Primordial Invincible first. He is a nascent soul great circle expert. Even if he can't win against me and Wei Tianba, it should not be difficult for him to protect himself for a short period of time. I'd better go and check on Ling Tianyu's injury. After Lin Yi finished speaking, he quietly went to the Thousand Blades faction. Everyone was paying attention to the rare top battle in the arena. No one noticed Lin Yi's movement. After coming to Ling Tianyu's side, Lin Yi directly grabbed Ling Tianyu's pulse and continuously transferred the spiritual qi from the space of the jade pendant to him. Ling Tianyu was slightly surprised, but he immediately realized that it was Lin Yi. So he cooperated with Lin Yi's spiritual qi and quickly healed his injury. In fact, Ling Tianyu's injury recovered very quickly with the Great Recover pill of the 5th grade. However, Lin Yi's method was obviously more effective. Because time was limited, Lin Yi could not wait any longer. As for Ling Tianyu, he had long been impressed by Lin Yi's miraculous ability. So he did not feel strange at all when Lin Yi suddenly came to heal him. Tianyu listened carefully. This time, the Tyrant's Blade School should have received the full support of the Qinquan sect. So, your invincible patriarch will soon taste the taste of failure again. If the Thousand Blades faction still wants to advance to the 10 minor sects, their last hope is that you can defeat the Gold Core Cultivator of the Tyrant's Blade School. After healing Ling Tianyu, Lin Yi transmitted his voice to Ling Tianyu. Ling Tianyu was slightly stunned. He immediately looked up at the arena, and his expression suddenly became extremely worried. At this time on the arena, Invincible Primordial was being forced into a difficult situation by his clone and Wei Tianba. Although his life was temporarily not in danger, there was no hope for him to drag it out until the clone disappeared. You don't have to worry. Invincible Primordial's strength is quite good. At least his life is not in danger. Now, you must listen carefully to what I have to say. This is related to whether the Thousand Blades faction can successfully advance to the 10 minor sects. Moreover, there is only one chance to win. If you miss it, you won't get another chance. Lin Yi did not waste any time and continued to transmit his voice to Ling Tianyu. Ling Tianyu calmed his mind and nodded solemnly to Lin Yi. Lin Yi then said, "Although the cultivation method of the Tyrant's Blade School is overbearing, their inheritance is not complete. I have taken a look. Whether it is Wei Yidao or Wei Tianba, when they attack, there will be a fatal flaw. If you can grasp this flaw, you can defeat the opponent's Gold Core Cultivator in one fell swoop." Hearing this news, Ling Tianyu's eyes suddenly lit up, and his gaze towards Lin Yi became eager. After all, Ling Tianyu was going to challenge someone of a higher level. It would be strange if Ling Tianyu had the confidence to do so. Even if Ling Tianyu had broken through to the Gold Core realm, it was unlikely that he would be a match for someone in the Gold Core realm. Remember, the fatal flaw of the tyrant's blade school will only appear for a moment. If you can't grasp it, admit defeat immediately. The opponent will not give you a second chance. Do you understand? Lin Yi's expression was quite serious. Of course, he could guarantee that Ling Tianyu would not be killed instantly. He could even secretly help Ling Tianyu defeat his opponent. However, Lin Yi disdained to use this method. Ensuring that Ling Tianyu would not die was Lin Yi's final bottom line. As for whether Ling Tianyu could defeat his opponent, Lin Yi had already done his best to help Ling Tianyu. Whether he could succeed or not depended on Ling Tianyu himself. At this time, the battle on the arena had entered a white-hot stage. Invincible Primordial roared repeatedly. Unfortunately, his decline was already irreversible. If it were not for the protection of the defensive formation around the arena, the aftermath of the battle would probably have killed a large number of low-level cultivators. Chapter 55-57. After receiving Lin Yi's guidance, Ling Tianyu immediately began to deduce. He did not know which gold core cultivator the tyrant's blade school would send, but through his fight with Wei Yidao and Wei Tianba's live demonstration, Ling Tianyu was able to find some clues. After Lin Yi finished these things, he got up and left the Thousand Blade School's place, giving some spiritual jades to the Chu family and the Xuanji school. At this time, Primordial Invincible had already been forced out of the arena. In the battle between the Thousand Blade School and the Tyrant's Blade School, both sides had one win and one loss. Now, it all depended on the last battle between the Gold Core cultivators. Ling Tianyu opened his eyes and ended the deduction in his mind. He immediately went up and asked with concern, "Invincible Patriarch, are you okay?" Primordial Invincible's face was a little pale. He shook his head gently and said, "I'm fine. I've already taken a recover pill. I'll be fine in a while." Primordial Invincible was quite unwilling to lose this battle. He was completely defeated by himself, and he almost persisted until the moment when the illusory mirror lost its effect. Less than 2 breaths after Primordial Invincible fell out of the arena, the clone of Primordial Invincible disappeared quietly. "Tianyu, this time our Thousand Blade School is a little unlucky. Let's make a comeback next time. Let's just give up the battle between the Gold Core cultivators." Primordial Invincible was silent for a moment and sighed. Ling Tianyu had just been injured, although it looked like he had almost recovered. Even if Ling Tianyu was in his peak state, he would definitely not be a match for a Gold Core exceptional realm expert. Primordial Invincible originally thought that he could avoid the battle between the Gold Core cultivators if he won, but now everything was over. He could not let Ling Tianyu die and ruin the future of the Thousand Blade School in vain. Ling Tianyu revealed a mysterious smile and whispered, "Invincible Patriarch, don't worry. This disciple is sure to win. Our Thousand Blade School can definitely enter the top 10. Sure to win?" Primordial Invincible was slightly startled, although he did not believe that Ling Tianyu was sure to win. Since Ling Tianyu said so, Primordial Invincible could not say anything. Turning his head to look for Lin Yi, Primordial Invincible thought to himself, "With this mysterious fellow here, Ling Tianyu's life shouldn't be in danger, right? Since that was the case, he might as well let Ling Tianyu have a try." At this moment, the great elder of Ruins Town on the stage urged, "Next is the final Golden Core battle between the Thousand Blade Sect and the Tyrant Blade Sect. Those of the Thousand Blade Sect, hurry up and get on the stage. Don't waste time." Previously, the great elder of the Ruins Town wanted to side with Wei Yidao, but was provoked by Ling Tianyu's words, causing Wei Yidao to vomit blood. At this moment, the great elder of the Ruins Town was in a bad mood and naturally wanted to make things difficult for Ling Tianyu. After all, Ling Tianyu's injuries weren't light. In such a short period of time, it would be difficult for him to recover even if he had a top-grade, grade 5 great cyclic pill. Letting Ling Tianyu go up the stage earlier was equivalent to letting him die earlier. Ling Tianyu nodded heavily at Primordial Invincible and said confidently, Invincible Patriarch, this disciple is going up. Be careful, don't force yourself. If you can't do it, jump off the stage immediately. Primordial Invincible reached out and patted Ling Tianyu's shoulder. Compared to letting the 1,000 blades sect ascend to the 10 small ones, he still hoped that Ling Tianyu could be safe. Ling Tianyu agreed and turned around to quickly go up the stage. He had already changed his tattered clothes into other spare clothes, so the fact that the hideous wound had already healed was not discovered by anyone. The Tyrant Blade sect had sent out a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core late stage. He wasn't the strongest Golden Core, exceptional perfection. Wei Yidao, who had already recovered a lot with the help of elixirs, sneered and said, Ling Tianyu, don't say that our Tyrant Blade sect didn't give you a chance. This time, we didn't send out a cultivator at the Golden Core, exceptional perfection. You should die in peace, right? Ling Tianyu glanced at Wei Yidao disdainfully and said indifferently, If you die in peace, I will help you close your eyes. Before Wei Yidao could retort, the great elder of the ruins town on the stage had already announced the start of the third battle. The cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core late stage of the Tyrant Blade sect unsheathed his long saber. The saber light was dazzling, and the saber aura swept out in all directions, instantly enveloping Ling Tianyu. Ling Tianyu's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't move from his original position, but his eyes were tightly fixed on the tip of the long saber. Without a doubt, the strongest point of the Tyrant Blade sect saber aura was the tip of the saber. This was the point where all the power converged. However, this was also the only flaw that Lin Yi had mentioned. The strongest point was also the weakest point. It was just like a football match in the secular world. When one side played their strongest attack and all the players pressed forward, once the attack was intercepted, they would have to face the consequences of being countered by the opponent. Ling Tianyu firmly remembered Lin Yi's words. There was a flaw in the Tyrant Blade sect's inherited mental cultivation method. Therefore, at the moment when the saber aura was about to rise, the tip of the saber would become the only flaw. That was the only chance for Ling Tianyu to win. If he missed it, there would never be a second chance. Time seemed to stop in an instant. The scene that he had simulated dozens of times in his mind just now reappeared perfectly in front of Ling Tianyu's eyes. He seemed to be able to see the opponent gathering all the vital qi at the tip of the saber. Once it was completed, the flaw would disappear completely. Victory or defeat would be decided in this instant. The black dagger shot out like a ghost. It was the dagger that had defeated Wei Yidao just now, the dagger that could pierce through the saber aura of the Tyrant Blade sect. The peak of the Golden Core late stage of the Tyrant Blade sect only felt his vision blur, and his hand trembled violently. The vital qi that was gathering suddenly lost its point, and immediately fell into a violent turbulence. It even showed signs of backfiring. The nascent soul realm old monsters who were watching the battle all opened their eyes at the same time. There were different expressions on their faces. Some were surprised, some were playful, and some were deep in thought. No matter what expression they had, Ling Tianyu's move had indeed amazed everyone. In a flash, the tip of the black dagger rotated and collided with the tip of the long saber of the peak of the Golden Core late stage of the Tyrant Blade sect. Even if there was a slight difference, the two would only collide and fly apart. However, under Ling Tianyu's control, the black dagger became extremely accurate, and it pierced into the long saber without the slightest error. Chapter 55-58. Ling Tianyu let out a long sigh of relief. Only now did he realize that his back was covered in cold sweat. It was absolutely impossible to say that he wasn't nervous. After all, he didn't have the slightest confidence in grasping that fleeting opportunity. Fortunately, he achieved it perfectly in the end. As the cultivator of the Tyrant Saber sect at the peak of the late stage of the gold elixir realm fell to the ground, the entire place fell into a strange silence. No one had expected such an outcome. Some people were not even prepared to watch the battle. When they raised their heads, everything was already over. Instant kill. And it was an instant kill between a peak late-stage gold core cultivator and a peak late-stage gold core cultivator. Everyone was wondering if there was something wrong with their eyes. Cheating. He must have cheated. How could such a thing happen? The first to break the silence was Wei Yidao, who hadn't fully recovered from his injuries. He refused to believe that Ling Tianyu, who had just defeated him by a fluke, could kill a peak late-stage gold core cultivator in an instant. Wouldn't he, Wei Yidao, be nothing if he went up? Ling Tianyu waved his black dagger and glanced at Wei Yidao with disdain. He couldn't be bothered to deal with this idiot. He had just killed his opponent fair and square. Cheating? Cheating my ass. Great Elder, can you announce the result now? Ling Tianyu turned to the Great Elder of the Ruins town, who was still in shock. The result. The Great Elder of the Ruins town took a deep breath and looked at Ling Tianyu deeply before continuing. The Thousand Blades sect challenged the Tyrant Blades sect in the third round. Ling Tianyu of the Thousand Blades sect won. The Tyrant Blades sect has dropped to the 5th reserve position. The Thousand Blades sect has been promoted to the top 10. Even if the Qinkuan sect wanted to side with the Tyrant Blade sect, they couldn't do anything about it. After all, the corpse was still on the stage. They couldn't possibly lie through their teeth, right? Wei Yidao roared, I don't accept this. Ling Tianyu must have cheated. Otherwise, how could a peak late-stage gold core cultivator like him defeat a peak late-stage gold core cultivator? And it was an instant kill. There must be a problem. The Great Elder of the Ruins town frowned slightly. Although the Tyrant Blade sect was under the Qinkuan sect, it was just a sect after all. Wasn't this the same as questioning the Qinkuan sect? Wei Yidao, are you questioning the impartiality of the Archaic Alliance? The Grand Elder of the ruined town was a bit displeased, so he spoke in a neutral tone. Wei Yidao shuddered. Only now did he realize that his words were somewhat inappropriate. He hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, Great Elder's words are too serious. There is no need to doubt the impartiality of the Archaic Alliance. Junior just doesn't trust the character of the Thousand Blades faction. The Great Elder of Ruins Town snorted and no longer paid attention to Wei Yidao. However, Wei Yidao turned around and provoked Ling Tianyu. Ling Tianyu, don't think that you can get the position by using dishonest means. If you have the guts, let's fight again. Ling Tianyu chuckled and said with a sneer, Why would I want to fight again? Are the rules set by your family? If you want to fight, sure. But you have to bet 1,000 spiritual jades. Right now, the Thousand Blades sect is one of the 10 small sects. It has both status and status. You guys are merely the 5th candidate, hee hee, your ghost. Wei Yidao was about to go mad with anger. With red eyes, he roared, Good. Ling Tianyu, just you wait. Our Tyrant Saber sect will definitely challenge your Thousand Blade sect. Isn't it just 1,000 spiritual jades? This young master has plenty of spiritual jades. Let's see what you can do at that time. Ling Tianyu just smiled, turned around, and walked down the stage, leaving Wei Yidao with the back of his head. His contemptuous look made Wei Yidao's blood boil even more. He wished he could immediately draw his saber and hack him 100 times to vent his anger. After Ling Tianyu left the stage, the Great Elder of Ruins Town signaled the people of the Tyrant Saber sect to quickly come up and carry the corpse away. Then he said, The challenge of the Thousand Blades sect has ended. Have the Chu family and Xuanji sect gathered enough spiritual jades? Chu Tianlu had already received the financial support of Lin Yi. He immediately stood up and said, Our Chu family is ready. Please check it, Great Elder. After he finished speaking, a bag full of spiritual jades was sent to the stage. The Great Elder of Ruins Town glanced at it and waved his hand to let people take it away. He said, Since you have gathered enough spiritual jades, let's start the duel. I wonder which sect your Chu family will challenge. The people below the stage had already recovered from the shock just now, although many people were still discussing Ling Tianyou's insta-killing of a peak, late gold core expert. The new challenge also attracted many people's attention. The Chu family is very strong. I always thought they were mediocre. Who knew they were actually hiding their strength? That's for sure. Without a nascent soul cultivator, if others knew they had so many gold core experts, they might be exterminated. Who would allow such an enemy to grow and threaten their position? That's right. Now that the Chu family has confidence, it's reasonable for them to enter the 10 small groups. Do you think they will choose the Thousand Blade sect, which has just risen? Don't be fooled by the fact that the Thousand Blade sect only has 2 people. Both of them are experts. I think Yi Ling's sect is more likely. After all, there was a rumor that they wanted to unite by marriage, but there was no further news. They probably fell out. It had to be said that there was a lot of news from the audience. Unfortunately, they didn't expect that both the Thousand Blade sect and Yi Ling sect were in the same boat as the Chu family. The boat was called Lin Yi. Therefore, no matter how weak they were among the 10 small groups, the Chu family wouldn't challenge them. Chu Tianlu looked around calmly, then pointed in the direction of the Six Directions sect and said, "The Chu family is challenging the Six Directions sect." Although this result was a little unexpected, it was still reasonable. In terms of strength, apart from the Leaf Spirit sect and the Thousand Blade sect, the weakest should be the Six Directions sect. Moreover, the Six Directions sect had fought with the Three Talents sect before. Although they had won rather easily, they had still expended some of their strength. The great elder of the ruins town nodded expressionlessly and said, "The Chu family is challenging the Six Directions sect. In the first match, both sides will send people onto the stage." Chu Tianlu turned around and pointed at a young man. "Tianqin, I'll leave the first match to you." "Yes, clan leader." Chu Tianqin was a genius disciple of the Chu family's branch family. According to seniority, he was Chu Tianlu's younger cousin. He was 2 years younger than Chu Tianlu, and his strength was already at the great circle of foundation establishment. In this archaic distinguished meeting, Chu Tianlu wouldn't take part himself. Firstly, his skills such as immovable shadow, shadow change bones, and so on weren't powerful combat skills. Secondly, as a clan leader, and a clan leader with relatively low strength at that, it was best not to go up and fight for no reason, so as to avoid damaging morale. Chapter 55-59. The Six Harmonies sect's representative was also a Foundation Establishment Great Perfection disciple, Huang Chuanrong. In the primordial underworld, he was one of the top 20 Foundation Establishment cultivators. Chu Tianqin, on the other hand, was not well known, which was in line with the Chu family's goal of keeping a low profile. After the two of them went on stage, they introduced themselves. They were very polite, and compared to the tyrant's blade school, who would always yell and draw their blades, they were much more polite. However, when it came to a real fight, there was no need to be polite. Six harmonies of heaven and earth. Huang Chuanrong got into a fighting stance and shouted. For a moment, the waves of vital energy exploded like boiling water, vaguely forming an invisible array. The so-called six harmonies referred to the top, bottom, front, back, left, and right. The Six Harmonies sect was one of the few sects in the primordial underworld that did not use weapons, because their martial techniques did not rely on weapons. Most of the time, they trapped their opponents in their own vital energy array, gaining an extremely advantageous advantage from the start. Just like now, after Huang Chuanrong used the six harmonies of heaven and earth, Chu Tianqin had entered Huang Chuanrong's territory, and his strength was first suppressed. However, Chu Tianqin did not panic at all. He still looked at Huang Chuanrong calmly, and at the same time he observed the vital energy waves of the six harmonies of heaven and earth. "Brother Chu, I'm sorry." Huang Chuanrong's lips curled into a smile. With a tap of his foot, his figure immediately turned into a shadow, and he struck a palm at Chu Tianxin's chest. Although the palm's momentum was not violent, it affected the vital energy waves of the 6 harmonies of heaven and earth, and it surged towards Chu Tianxin from top, bottom, front, back, left, and right. Within the 6 harmonies, there was no way out. If everything went smoothly, this one move would be enough to decide the victor. Unfortunately, things did not seem to go as smoothly as Huang Chuanrong thought. Chu Tianxin looked at Huang Chuanrong charging at him calmly, but did not dodge. He did not even take a defensive stance. Huang Chuanrong was still puzzled, but the palm had already passed through Chu Tianxin's body. An illusion? Huang Chuanrong was shocked, and a layer of cold sweat broke out on his back. When did Chu Tianxin turn himself into an illusion? Huang Chuanrong did not notice at all. This was a fatal mistake. How could there be the slightest mistake when fighting an opponent of the same level? It's not an illusion. It's just a shadow. Chu Tianxin's voice suddenly rang out in Huang Chuanrong's ears, causing all the hairs on Huang Chuanrong's body to stand on end. In the middle of all this, he actually let Chu Tianxin sneak up behind him without him knowing? Huang Chuanrong was shocked, but he did not lose his sense of propriety. He knew that Chu Tianxin was right behind him, but he did not stupidly turn around. Doing so would only cause him to be killed when he was caught off guard. In the current situation, the only thing he could do was put some distance between himself and Chu Tianxin. Only then would he be able to find an opportunity to counterattack. That was why Huang Chuanrong charged forward with all his might. At the same time, he gathered the true energy, fluctuations of the 6 directions, heaven and earth around him. On one hand, he could increase his defense, and on the other, he could restrict Chu Tianxin. That wasn't enough. Huang Chuanrong didn't retract his palm strike either. He drew a semicircle in the air and threw it behind him. If he was lucky, he might be able to hit Chu Tianxin behind him. It had to be said that Huang Chuanrong's reaction in this situation was quite perfect. Unfortunately, his opponent was not the same type of person he used to be. That was why this series of actions was meaningless in the eyes of the people below the stage. Huang Chuanrong immediately realized this, because he could already see that the person in front of him was Chu Tianxin, who had a calm expression on his face. How is this possible? Huang Chuanrong was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. In order to deal with this crisis, he had rushed forward with all his might and struck back with all his might. There was almost no room for him to move. But how did Chu Tianxin get in front of him? It's the Chu family's shadow following body, the evolved version of the shadow sticking step, and someone has actually mastered it in the foundation establishment stage. That's really not easy. Chi Denai from the Heaven Awakening faction suddenly exclaimed in admiration. When he looked at the Chu family's camp, there was a hint of change in his eyes. Beside him, the tribulation-passing sage's expression did not change, and no one knew what he was thinking. On the other hand, Shangguan Qinyin was smiling happily. The Chu family and the Shangguan family were on the same side, and the Chu family strength was also beneficial to the Shangguan family. Chu Tianxin, who had appeared in front of Huang Chuanrong, smiled faintly and said, "Brother Huang, please excuse me." Similarly, he sent a palm strike straight at Huang Chuanrong's chest, and even his words were returned almost exactly the same. If this palm strike had landed, it would not have been fatal, but it would have been enough to make Huang Chuanrong retreat in defeat. In a moment of desperation, Huang Chuanrong saw that he would not be able to dodge this palm strike, so he immediately bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. In an impossible situation, his body began to spin on the spot. 6 harmonies of heaven and earth, reversal of yin and yang. In an instant, it was as if the entire world had been turned upside down. Chu Tianxin had clearly sent a palm strike at Huang Chuanrong, but now, the one that was about to hit was Chu Tianxin himself. It was as if he had slapped a mirror. At the same time, Huang Chuanrong's right leg was straight like a whip, striking fiercely at Chu Tianxin's head. After using the yin-yang reversal, Huang Chunrong had suffered some serious internal injuries, but at the cost of that, he was able to gather all the true energy in his body again, gathering it into his leg. As long as he could hit his target, even if Chu Tianxin did not die, he would still be severely injured. Just as Chu Tianxin's palm strike was about to hit him, and Huang Chunrong's leg was about to touch Chu Tianxin's head, Chu Tianxin's body suddenly twisted, then disappeared once again. Although it was said that Chu Tianxin had disappeared, that was only for Huang Chunrong. The audience below the stage could clearly see that Chu Tianxin had mysteriously moved behind Huang Chunrong, his head down and feet up. His hand was already in front of Huang Chunrong's neck, gripping his throat. As long as Chu Tianxin wanted to, he could end Huang Chunrong's life at any time. Brother Huang's 6 directions of heaven and earth is indeed marvelous, but too bad you've met your little brother. Between heaven and earth, in all directions, my shadow is everywhere. Chu Tianxin did not kill Huang Chunrong, but merely maintained his deterrence towards Huang Chunrong as he spoke calmly into Huang Chunrong's ear. Huang Chunrong smiled bitterly and waved his hand to retract his true qi, and both of them returned to their normal standing posture. In this match, Huang Chunrong wholeheartedly accepted his loss. No matter how powerful the 6 directions of heaven and earth was, it could not lock down a shadow. Just as Chu Tianxin had said, meeting such a natural enemy, there was no shame in losing. Chapter 5560. Huang Chunrong now understood. It was no wonder the Chu clan had challenged the Tang sect. If the Tang sect had been in the Chu clan's position, it would definitely have challenged a sect that was being suppressed. Thus, this time the Tang sect was truly going to be knocked out of the 10 minor schools. What they needed to consider was whether they would have a chance to return. Chu Tianxin withdrew his finger from Huang Chunrong's throat. After Huang Chunrong turned around, he smiled and cupped his fists. "Thank you for letting me win." Huang Chunrong smiled bitterly and cupped his fists. Without saying anything more, he turned and left the stage. The Chu clan has challenged the Tang sect. The first match was between Foundation Establishment cultivators, and the Chu clan has won. Next is the second match between Golden Core cultivators. Both sides, please send your representatives onto the stage. The Grand Elder of the Ruins town announced formally, his face still expressionless. After Chu Tianxin left the stage, Grand Elder Chu Yunting stood up and walked onto the stage. Although the Chu clan had many Golden Core cultivators, only Grand Elder Chu Yunting had reached Golden Core consummation. For safety's sake, he could only send Chu Yunting to fight. But when Chu Yunting stepped onto the stage, the Tang sect did not follow. Instead, they discussed among themselves for a while, and then someone stood up and said, "There's no need to fight this match. Our Tang sect admits defeat." The audience instantly fell into an uproar. The Tang sect had already lost one match. If they admitted defeat now, they would be handing over their position as one of the 10 minor schools. Even if the Tang sect still had a chance to gamble, that would still require 1,000 spirit jades. For this 1,000 spirit jades, they should at least stake it all, right? Chu Yunting froze for a moment before understanding dawned on him. The Tang sect was probably trying to preserve their strength. Through the first match, he knew that the Chu clan's techniques just so happened to restrain the Tang sect. Rather than fighting the Chu clan head-on, even if they could win 1 or 2 matches, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. It was better to take a step back, circle around the Chu clan, and then find a weaker sect to gamble with and return to the 10 minor schools. In any case, obtaining a spot in the 10 minor schools without bloodshed was much better than fighting to the death. Chu Yunting smiled and cupped his hands to the Tang sect. "Thanks for letting me win." The person who had stood up to speak also cupped his hands to Chu Yunting and then sat back down. The Grand Elder of the ruined town signaled for Chu Yunting to leave before announcing the results of the challenge. The Chu clan has successfully challenged the Tang faction and become one of the 10 minor powers. The Tang faction has been relegated to the last place for the great Tang sect to voluntarily concede. Regardless of the reason, the Chu clan's strength was evident. The smaller sects in the audience all looked at the Chu clan's square formation with envious gazes. The rise of this clan was basically unstoppable. Next is the Profound Theory sect's battle wager. Have you gathered all the spirit jades? The great elder of Ruins Town didn't have a good impression of the Chu clan, so he didn't say anything else and directly asked about the Profound Secrets school's intentions. Actually, the Xuanji sect was also in a difficult position. Among the 10 minor sects, the weaker ones were the Xuanyu sect and the Tang sect. Other than these two sects, the Leaf Spirit sect and the Thousand Blades sect were also very weak. However, these two sects were related to Lin Yi, so the Xuanji sect couldn't just slap Lin Yi in the face, right? The problem was that they had already agreed to the wager battle, so they couldn't cancel it even if they wanted to. If they said that they didn't gather all the spirit jades, then it wouldn't be as simple as losing face. Instead, they would be ridiculed by others and become a laughingstock for bragging. After all, a sect's wealth was also very important. Li Yunjia handed the bag of spirit jades to the people of Ruins Town, then said, "We have gathered all the spirit jades. As for the sect we want to challenge, our Profound Secret School will choose the Leaf Spirit sect." It wasn't strange for those who didn't know the relationship between the Profound Secret School and the Leaf Spirit sect. After all, among the 10 minor sects, besides the Thousand Blades sect, the Leaf Spirit sect was the weakest. Moreover, the Thousand Blades sect had a nascent Soul Great Circle cultivator, and Ling Tianyu had insta-killed an opponent that was a major realm higher than him. Speaking of which, the Thousand Blades sect was definitely not to be trifled with. Choosing the Leaf Spirit sect was the inevitable result. Lin Yi frowned slightly. Others might not know, but there was no way the Profound Secret School didn't know about his relationship with the Leaf Spirit sect. Why did they still want to challenge the Leaf Spirit sect? Could it be that Hong Xianlei thought that he could do whatever he wanted after advancing to the nascent soul stage? He had said that he wasn't allowed to interfere in the affairs of the Profound Secret School. Was he going to break his vow now? As for Li Yunjia, Lin Yi didn't suspect him. This guy was quite similar to Exan Yijia. Generally, it was unlikely that he would make such a decision. Although he was the one who said it, Lin Yi was more suspicious that Hong Xianlei was behind this. However, it wasn't appropriate for Lin Yi to say anything in this situation. He could only continue to wait and see. The great elder of Ruins Town had a strange look on his face. As a member of the Qianquan sect and the great elder who was in charge of the entire Ruins Town, he was naturally more aware of the situation on Lin Yi's side. Now that he saw that the Leaf Spirit sect and the Profound Secret School were fighting each other for the position of the 10 minor sects, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't happy. Suppressing the urge to laugh out loud, the great elder of Ruins Town said calmly, "The Profound Secret School is challenging the Leaf Spirit sect, one of the 10 minor sects. The first match of the foundation building stage will begin immediately. Both sides, send your people onto the stage." Wait. As soon as the great elder of Ruins Town finished speaking, Li Yunjia raised his hand and said, "There's no need to fight. The Profound Secret School admits defeat." Admit defeat? Let alone the great elder of Ruins Town. Even the spectators below the stage found it hard to understand. What on earth was going on? You're saying that the Profound Secret School admits defeat in this foundation building stage battle? The great elder of Ruins Town asked uncertainly. It was rare to see two closely related sects fighting each other. Wouldn't it be boring if one side admitted defeat? Li Yunjia shook his head solemnly and said, "Of course not." The crowd relaxed and thought to themselves, "That's more like it. If you admit defeat, why the F*CK did you take the initiative to challenge them? Hurry up and fight. Don't you know that everyone is waiting to watch a good show? To be honest, the great Elder of Ruins Town's thoughts were exactly the same as the spectators below the stage. However, what Li Yunjia said next made the great Elder of Ruins Town roll his eyes involuntarily. What I'm saying is that there's no need to fight. The Profound Secrets School admits defeat in this wagered battle. Li Yunjia enunciated his words clearly to ensure that no one would mishear a single word. However, the people who heard this all felt that there was something wrong with their ears. This idiot spent 1,000 spiritual jade to challenge them just to admit defeat? Was he crazy, or had the world gone crazy? The great Elder of Ruins Town could not believe what he was hearing. For a moment, he was so stunned that he even forgot to speak. Chapter 5561. The Grand Elder of Ruins Town suddenly understood. This was AF * King Shill, right? He spent 1,000 spiritual jades just to say this, to make the Leaf Spirit sect seem unfathomable and avoid being challenged by the High Feather sect and the Six Directions sect, 2 sects that had fallen out of the 10 small sects, right? Come to think of it, since these 2 sects were in cahoots, the 1,000 spiritual jades weren't really spent. It was just a trade. Could they not be so F * King shameless? The Grand Elder of Ruins Town, who thought he had seen through everything, was furious. However, there was nothing he could do. Rules were rules. There was nothing he could do about this loophole. The Leaf Spirit sect wins. It will remain in the 10 small sects. The Grand Elder of Ruins Town's mouth twitched. He gave a perfunctory reply and turned to the High Feather sect. Does the High Feather sect want to participate in the wagered battle? The people from the High Feather sect considered for a moment and finally gave up on the wagered battle. They were the weaker ones among the 10 small sects. At most, they were slightly stronger than the Leaf Spirit sect and were on par with the Six Directions sect. Now that the Six Directions sect had also fallen, the Leaf Spirit sect was a little uncertain because of the Profound Destiny sect's sudden move. Moreover, the Leaf Spirit sect and the High Feather sect were both under the Enlightening Heaven sect. It was fine if they were confident, but if they weren't, they would become a laughingstock and even offend their allies. Most importantly, 1,000 spiritual jades was not a small amount. Hence, the High Feather sect could only wait for the next primeval grand meeting. During this time, Li Yunjia had already run over to Lin Yi to explain. Uncle Master Lin, this disciple suddenly challenged the Leaf Spirit sect and did not inform you in advance. I really did not have enough time. I'm here to apologize to you. When Lin Yi saw the Profound Destiny sect admit defeat, he already understood. He immediately smiled. I understand. You think that the Profound Destiny sect is not confident against any other sects, so you might as well challenge the Leaf Spirit sect and admit defeat. On one hand, you can bluff for the Leaf Spirit sect. On the other hand, you can transfer the spiritual jades to the Leaf Spirit sect, so that the Ruins Town Conference doesn't benefit, right? Uncle Masterlin is really perceptive. Li Yunjia smiled and flattered him. Then he continued, Actually, I just don't want to let the spiritual jades fall into the hands of outsiders. I didn't think of any false bravado. There's such an effect? What a lucky hit. Although it's a little embarrassing, it's worth it. At least I didn't let Marshal Granduncle lose any of his spirit jades. Lin, he couldn't help but smile. This kid is rather interesting. At the very least, he knows how to be flexible, and he's also flexible. Compared to Hong Xuanlei's obstinate and self-opinionated personality, Li Yunjia is clearly more suitable to be the sect master. No matter what, Li Yunjia's bold and unconstrained move saved the Yiling sect some trouble. Originally, the Yiling sect was likely to be defeated by the 10 Little Ones. Now, perhaps they didn't have to worry anymore. After the Profound Feather School gave up on the gambling match, the next was the Tyrant's Blade School, which had just been defeated by the 1,000 Blade School. Wei Yidao wholeheartedly believed that Ling Tianyu had used some tricks and a sneak attack to win the match. Thus, without waiting for the great elder of the ruins town to speak, he directly jumped up and shouted, "Our tyrant's blade school wants to gamble with 1,000-blade school. The spiritual jades are right here." The great elder of the ruins town frowned slightly. This Wei Dao was actually quite annoying. He hadn't even said anything yet, and Wei Dao had already jumped out to scare him. If it weren't for the fact that the Qiankuan school had supported the Tyrant's Blade School a lot more, the great elder of the ruins town wouldn't have tolerated this guy for so long. After this period of rest, and with the help of a top-grade, 5th-grade Great Recover Pill, Wei Dao had already completely recovered from his injuries. In his opinion, Ling Tianyu's injuries weren't any lighter than his own. Just now, Ling Tianyu had tried to show off and sneak-attacked a Golden Core Perfection Realm Cultivator. Although Ling Tianyu had one, Ling Tianyu's recovery definitely wouldn't be faster than his. There was also Primordial Invincible. Although he didn't seem to have suffered many injuries when he was forced off the stage, he definitely wouldn't have had it so easy. In addition, if he challenged the 1,000-blade school and killed Ling Tianyu, it would be equivalent to directly winning 2 matches between the Foundation Establishment Realm and the Golden Core Realm. Primordial Invincible would be fine even if he was fine. In short, Wei Dao had considerable confidence in challenging the 1,000-blade school again this time. He would be able to crush the 1,000-blade school. The people of the town of ruins kept Wei Dao's spiritual jades and indicated to the great elder of the town of ruins that the number was correct. Only then did the great elder of the town of ruins open his mouth and say, "Hegemon's Blade School versus the 1,000-blade school. The rules are the same as before. The first match between the Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators begin." Without saying anything, Wei Dao drew his saber and went up the stage. He pointed at Ling Tianyu and said, "Brat, hurry up and come up to accept your death. If you want to say a few last words, I can be merciful and let you say a few more. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to do so in a while." Ling Tianyu could even kill a Golden Core late-stage expert in one blow. Why would he care about a mere Wei Dao? Even if Lin Yi hadn't told him about the flaws, the two of them would still be evenly matched in a real fight. Hearing Wei Dao's arrogant words, Ling Tianyu smiled indifferently and slowly walked up the stage. He said, "Why are you in such a hurry? Are you rushing to reincarnate? You're courting death." Wei Dao roared angrily. His long saber carried a cold light as he once again took the initiative to attack. Unfortunately, Ling Tianyu was waiting for him to make the first move. If Wei Dao didn't move, how could Ling Tianyu find that flaw? Having experienced it once, he was even more familiar with it this time. The black dagger shot out like lightning and accurately hit the tip of the long saber. Wei Dao was greatly shocked. Although he thought that Ling Tianyu had won the previous match by using some tricks, he was still on guard against this move of Ling Tianyu's. He didn't expect that no matter how much he guarded against it, he still couldn't block it. The moment the long saber shattered, Wei Dao crushed a secret treasure hidden in his palm to create a temporary layer of defense for himself. The black dagger could ignore the saber power of the Hegemon's Blade School and could also penetrate the enemy's protective chi. However, it couldn't do anything to the defensive layer formed by this secret treasure. After a moment of stalemate in the air, Ling Tianyu directly called back the black dagger. "Wei Dao, is this what you're relying on? There is no chance of victory if you hide in a turtle shell." Ling Tianyu looked at Wei Dao with a smile that wasn't a smile and mocked him faintly. Wei Dao was a little arrogant, but he wasn't a fool. Since he was on guard against Ling Tianyu, how could he risk his life? Therefore, it wasn't surprising that he had such a defensive tool. In the defensive layer, Wei Dao's face was extremely ugly. After personally experiencing it, he was sure that Ling Tianyu's instantaneous killing of a Golden Core late-stage expert was definitely not a trick, but a flaw in the Hegemon's Blade School. Chapter 5562. Ling Tianyu looked at the great elder of the ruins town. Seeing that the other party didn't say anything, he turned to Wei Yidao and said, "Hey, Wei Yidao, how long are you going to be a turtle? Are you going to fight or not? Don't waste time." Wei Yidao's body trembled slightly. He had wholeheartedly wanted to kill Ling Tianyu, using himself to push others. Ling Tianyu should also want to kill him, right? If they continued to fight, not only would he have no chance of winning, but his life would also be in danger. After all, this defense layer had a time limit. Once the time was up, there would be nothing left to save his life. I admit defeat. After thinking it through, Wei Yidao could only grit his teeth and admit defeat. Compared to his life, a little face was not a big deal. A trace of vague disdain flashed in the great elder's eyes. He was originally not satisfied with Wei Yidao, but now it turned into contempt. He Gemin Blade Sect versus Thousand Blade Sect. The first round, Thousand Blade Sect wins. Next, the second round. The great elder of the ruins town was too lazy to talk nonsense and directly announced the start of the second round. Wei Yidao jumped off the stage, resentfully. He wanted to quickly tell the people in the sect what he had observed, so that his fellow gold core stage disciples wouldn't be defeated by Ling Tianyu again. However, Immemorial Invincible didn't give Wei Yidao the chance. He directly went up the stage and said, "Just now the battle between the nascent soul stage and the foundation establishment stage began. It's the same now. Wei Tianba, come up." Ling Tianyu tactfully left the stage. He also knew that Immemorial Invincible was holding back his anger. Previously, Wei Tianba used the illusion mirror to copy Immemorial Invincible and let him fight himself. As a result, he lost in a sullen manner. Now that he had a chance, of course, Immemorial Invincible would take revenge. As for whether Wei Tianba had another illusion mirror, Immemorial Invincible wasn't worried at all. That was illusion mirror, not cabbages on the roadside. How could there be so many? Wei Tianba stood up with a gloomy face. Just now, Qian Kuin's sect gave him the illusion mirror, and there was indeed only one. If he could kill Immemorial Invincible, it would definitely be a huge profit. Unfortunately, Immemorial Invincible escaped at the last moment. Now, Wei Tianba really didn't have any confidence in fighting Immemorial Invincible. However, Wei Tianba and Wei Yidao's thoughts were similar. Primeval Invincible might not have fully recovered from his injuries. If he were to fight now, he might be able to win. Most importantly, the Tyrant Blade School could not afford to lose again. If they lost again, they would completely lose the qualifications to be one of the 10 minor sections. According to the rules, the sects that fell out of the 10 minor sects only had one chance to challenge or gamble. If they lost, they could only wait for the next immemorial meeting. Otherwise, I can't let you challenge endlessly, right? After weighing the pros and cons, Wei Tianba braced himself and entered the arena. If Primeval Invincible's injuries hadn't healed yet, this would be his only chance to take advantage of the situation. Primordial Invincible sneered, "Wei Tianba, you have guts, you actually dare to come up. Seeing that you have some guts, this old man will leave your corpse intact." The arrogance in Wei Tianba's heart was immediately ignited. No matter what, he was a mid-stage, nascent soul cultivator. Even if he was wary of Immemorial Invincible, he definitely wouldn't lower his head. What a coincidence! I like to cut my enemies into 8 pieces. It will be very difficult for you to leave your corpse intact. Wei Tianba said tit for tat. At the same time, he unsheathed his long saber and slashed at Primordial Invincible. Due to Ling Tianyou's 2 consecutive stunning performances, Wei Tianba didn't dare to use his saber right away. He could only use ordinary moves to test the waters. However, he didn't expect that Primordial Invincible didn't know about the Tyrant Blade School's flaws. After all, it was Lin Yi who told Ling Tianyu about it. Without Lin Yi's permission, Ling Tianyu didn't dare to tell others, even if that person was Primordial Invincible. Primordial Invincible laughed and said disdainfully, You like to cut people into 8 pieces? It's not like I can't satisfy your wish. With your flowery but impractical moves, even 9 or 10 pieces are nothing to me." As he spoke, Primordial Invincible directly reached out to grab Wei Tianba's long saber. There were no fancy moves or changes. It was just a crushing suppression of strength. He was sure that Wei Tianba wouldn't be able to resist it. An invisible huge pressure instantly pressed down on Wei Tianba, causing his face to turn extremely pale. When he teamed up with Primordial Invincible's clone to deal with Primordial Invincible, he was completely in the supporting role. All the pressure and danger were all borne by the clone. Now that he was facing Primordial Invincible, he realized how big the gap between him and Primordial Invincible was. It was simply like heaven and earth. He was once the #1 nascent soul cultivator in the immemorial Jianghu. He wasn't just a joke. A mere mid-stage nascent soul cultivator was nothing in front of Primordial Invincible. Primordial Invincible simply reached out and grabbed the back of Wei Tianba's saber. With a simple twist, Wei Tianba's long saber broke from the hilt. The saber light rolled back without any hindrance. Wei Tianba's face had just revealed a horrified expression when his entire head flew into the sky. Without any warning, his body was cut into pieces of meat. Because of Primordial Invincible's Jinchi, no blood or internal organs flowed out. The cut was neat and smooth. Although it wasn't a bloody mess, it made people feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. A peak nascent soul cultivator crushed a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator so easily. Primordial Invincible casually threw away the broken saber in his hand and said lightly, "I'm sorry I cut a few more pieces. I couldn't fulfill your wish of cutting people into 8 pieces. I'll pay attention next time." The audience was speechless. He was already like this, and there was still a next time? After Primordial Invincible finished speaking, he turned to look at the great elder of Ruin's town, causing him to tremble. He quickly announced, "The Tyrant's Blade sect has lost the challenge against the 1,000 Blade sect. The rankings of both sides remain the same." As he spoke, the great elder of Ruin's town quietly took a few steps back. Although Primordial Invincible didn't have any killing intent, that kind of power was enough to make the great elder's heart go cold. Especially when he thought about how this old man was a mortal enemy of the Qinquan sect. He had to put more distance between them. Otherwise, Primordial Invincible would suddenly have a brain cramp and casually cut him into 8 pieces. Okay, 12 or 13 pieces. Fortunately, Primordial Invincible didn't pay attention to the great elder of Ruin's town. After hearing the result he wanted, he grunted and slowly left the arena. At this time, the audience gradually began to talk, but most of them were praising Primordial Invincible. His thunderous methods had clearly shocked the people from the small sects. Chapter 5563. Previously, the Six Directions sect and the Chu family had only fought 1 round before immediately giving up. It was obvious that they wanted to preserve their strength. Normally, they would definitely participate in the wagered battle to return to the top 10. However, the people of the Six Directions sect suddenly realized that they really had no opponents to challenge. The 1,000 Blades sect only had 2 people? Don't joke around. Those 2 were ruthless people who could instantly kill their opponents of the same level. As for the Chu family, they had already admitted defeat. Why would they spend spiritual jade to be tortured? Seeing that the Leaf Spirit sect was the weakest, the Xuanji sect's sudden surrender made the Leaf Spirit sect feel somewhat unfathomable. There was only one chance, and they didn't have many spiritual jades. After thinking about it, the Six Directions sect almost chose to give up. In the end, they couldn't accept it and chose the relatively weaker Okuda family as their opponent. In terms of ranking, the Okuda family and the Six Directions sect were almost equal. In terms of strength, they were slightly stronger than the Six Directions sect. Under normal circumstances, the Six Directions sect didn't want to challenge the Okuda family, but they really had no other choice now. In the first two matches, the Foundation Establishment stage and the Golden Core stage, both sides were tied. Finally, in the Nascent Soul stage, the Okuda clan won and had the last laugh. Not only did they keep their spot in the 10 small ones, but they also received a prize of 1,000 spiritual jades. The Six Directions faction, on the other hand, had to leave in dejection. They could only wait for the next immemorial meeting to make a comeback. The qualification challenge of the top 10 has ended. We are very happy to see new faces enter the top 10, but we are also very sorry that some old friends have to leave temporarily. However, the gathering will continue. Next is the ranking battle of the top 10. After the battle between the Okuda family and the Six Directions sect, the great elder of Ruins Town regained his confidence as the host. With a few simple words, he began the ranking battle of the top 10. Everyone knows that the ranking of the 10 minor sects is very important. It concerns the allocation of resources every year. The higher the ranking, the more resources you will receive. Moreover, there is an even more special meaning today, and that is the qualification to challenge the Big Four. If you think your sect has the strength to enter the Big Four, then you must perform well and fight for first place in the 10 minor sects. Then you can challenge the Big Four. The great elder of Ruins Town said with a rare smile. Clearly he was just saying it. He didn't really think that any sect could challenge the top 4. After all, the 10 primordial beasts only had the right to receive the distribution of resources in the primordial mountain range, and the ones who distributed these resources to them were the 4 great beasts. From this, one could clearly see the huge difference in the ratio of resources obtained by both sides. Without the support of resources, how could the 10 minor beasts develop and challenge the Big Four? What's more, the top 10 disciples were basically all from the Chinkuan sect, so there was no need to worry about challenges. Of course, in addition to the distribution of resources according to the ranking, the 4 great sects would also distribute some resources to their own sects in private. This was also why the Chinkuan sect was the strongest. It was because the Chinkuan sect itself was the sect that received the most resources. All right, back to the main topic. I believe that everyone is getting impatient. The first competition of the year will depend on the contribution of each sect. After all, resources are limited. Sects that don't contribute are not qualified to be allocated resources. Therefore, the next competition will be the gathering of spiritual jades. This is a new project, so listen carefully to the rules. The great elder of the Ruins Town didn't continue with the nonsense and directly threw out the first competition. The freshly minted 10 minor beasts also pricked up their ears and listened carefully. The mining of spiritual jades was something that happened once a year, but it was the first time it was used as a competition. Therefore, the 10 minor beasts were very attentive. Everyone knows that the spiritual jades in the primordial underworld are relatively scarce. The spiritual jade vein in the primordial mountain range produces the most. However, there is a limit to the spiritual jade vein. It can only be mined once a year, and only 20 people can enter each time. The time limit is also only 10 days. In the past, the 10 minor beasts sent their own people to mine, and the harvest was basically the same. Therefore, this time after discussion, the big 4 great beasts decided to use this as the first competition. Before the great elder of the Ruins Town explained the rules, he couldn't help but explain it first, in case the 10 minor beasts had any doubts. This time, the 10 minor beasts will send 2 people each. Each person will have a special void bag. No fighting is allowed. They will enter the spiritual jade vein to mine spiritual jades. The one who mines the most spiritual jades will win. The points will also be from 10 to 1, which will be added to the sect's score. Isn't it simple? The great elder of the Ruins Town glanced in the direction of the Blue Cloud sect and smiled. Originally, this competition was designed to be fought over the void bags at the last moment. However, considering that the Blue Cloud sect's strength was somewhat strange and unpredictable, Sage Dujia suggested to cancel the snatching part and let the 10 minor beasts mine the spiritual jades in peace. Perhaps that would be able to limit the blue cloud sec score. As for the void bag, it was a primordial tool controlled by the Archaic Alliance. It could store an unlimited amount of spiritual jades. Although it wasn't something that could be seen everywhere in the archaic underworld, the Big Four still had a lot of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to take out 20 of them at once. After listening to Xian explanation of the void bag, Lin Yi was secretly amazed. The archaic underworld was indeed unique, at least on the Heaven Stage Island. He had never heard of a treasure like the void bag. In fact, there were very few secret treasures and tools from the archaic underworld on the Heaven Stage Island. The development of the two places was indeed completely different. Grand Master, after the spiritual jades are stored in the void bag, we can't take it out anymore. We can only open it after we come out, and the Archaic Alliance uses a special method. So in the spiritual jade vein, it's useless to snatch other people's void bags. What the Big Four want is for us, the 10 minor beasts, to work hard and then take out a part of it to distribute to the 10 minor beasts. Although it's called resource distribution, it's actually a reward. After following Lin Yi, Xian was no longer short of spiritual jades. Therefore, when talking about the mining of spiritual jades, there was a disdainful look on his face. What he didn't know was that the Qiankuan sect originally wanted the 10 minor beasts to fight over the void bags on the last day. Although they couldn't open the bags, the more they had, the more spiritual jades they took out. It was because they were afraid of the Blue Cloud sect that they finally canceled this rule. Chapter 5564. Genius in a Second, remember, love go. To provide you with exciting novels to read. Xian thought about it and felt that it made sense. He nodded in admiration. Grand Master, you're so insightful. By the way, why don't I bring Jean Weifeng along? With our strength, it's not a problem to enter the top 3. Lin Yi understood that Xian felt that hard work like mining spiritual jade was not suitable for Lin Yi as a Grand Master. Hence, he suggested that he and Jean Weifeng go together. However, Lin Yi wanted to see what the spiritual jade immortal vein looked like and how the void bag worked. Hence, he rejected Xian suggestion after some thought. I'd like to see it myself this time. Ijia, you don't have to go. Stay here and look after it. I'll go with Jean Weifeng. Lin Yi paused and continued. Although it's useless to rob someone's void bag, would it be a problem to kill someone inside? Xian expression suddenly changed. He really did not think about this. The great elder of Ruined Town did not say anything about this. He only said that no one was allowed to snatch the void bag. Although the Archaic Alliance wanted to collect more spiritual jades, if someone killed someone in the void bag for the sake of hindering others, the Archaic Alliance might not be able to stop it. My score is not high. It's okay, as long as others don't get any points. Grand Master, why don't I go with you? Just let Weifeng stay outside. Xian wanted Jean Weifeng to stay behind when he thought of this possibility. Lin Yi smiled and looked at Xian. Are you worried that something will happen to me, or that I can't take care of Weifeng, and something will happen to him? Xian face turned red. Given Lin Yi's skills, the other 9 sects might not be able to do anything to him even if they joined hands. Jean Weifeng might be safer if he followed Lin Yi than if he stayed outside. Not to mention that some of the 10 small sects were allied with them. The Soaring Heaven sect, the Snow Sword faction, the Leaf Spirit sect, the Thousand Blades faction, the Chu clan, and the Azure Cloud sect itself made up 6 of the 10 minor sections. If they didn't go looking for trouble with others, they would already be laughing. Who would be so blind as to provoke the Azure Cloud sect? The great elder of the ruined town pointed at the 20 void bags he had prepared and said, "Does everyone understand now? If there's no problem, bring everyone who's going to mine the spirit jade here. Everyone will get a void pouch and prepare to head to the spirit jade immortal vein." It's settled then. Weifeng, you're coming with me to do 10 days of hard labor. Lin Yi chuckled as he turned to Jean Weifeng beside him. Jean Weifeng giggled and said, "Following Marshal Granduncle is a great blessing." How is there such a thing as hard labor? As they spoke, the 10 participants of this project went up to collect their void bags. Lin Yi looked around and saw quite a few familiar faces. The Snow Sword Sect had Bing Wuqing and Sect Master Hong Qingyuan. The Chu family had Chu Yuntian and Chu Yunting. The Thousand Blade Sect had no choice, only Primordial Invincible and Ling Tianyu. The Leaf Spirit Sect had Sect Master Yi Qingqing and Duan Muyu's Master Yi Tongxian. And the Grand Elder Yi Yixing didn't come, probably still recovering from his injuries. There was also evil warding sects Zhao Dan, whom Lin Yi knew, but he avoided Lin Yi's eyes. He didn't want to have anything to do with Lin Yi. Yin Qinqing's death didn't seem to have spread. Otherwise, there would be people who would challenge the evil warding sect. Lin Yi and Jin Weifeng were the last to get the void pouches, and Lin Yi only nodded to the people he knew with his eyes. He didn't say much, as everyone had a tacit understanding that they'd take care of each other after going in. Lin Yi held the void bag and used his divine sense to check it, but was blocked by an invisible force. It should be what Exainegia said before, a secret technique set up by the Archaic Alliance. Other than them, no one else could open the void bag and take out the things inside. Of course, if Lin Yi wanted to, he could break it by force. However, it wasn't necessary. All right, since all the void bags have been taken, let's get ready to teleport to the Ling Yu celestial vein. The great elder of the ruined town glanced at Lin Yi and announced the start of the teleportation. The tribulation-conquering immortal stood up and signaled the rest of the nascent soul realm cultivators to disperse. On the jade discs behind them, complicated formation patterns were lighting up. This was the teleportation formation that the 4 major sects had set up to enter the Ling Yu celestial vein. However, it wouldn't go directly to the Ling Yu celestial vein. There would be a transfer point, without a special method. Even if someone could replicate this temporary formation, they wouldn't be able to enter the Ling Yu celestial vein. After the teleportation formation was completely activated, the tribulation-conquering immortal said to the 20 children, "Please enter the teleportation formation in order. Only one person can pass at a time. The destination is random. Therefore, you may not meet people from your own sect. Everyone should know this, so don't worry. As long as you collect enough spiritual jades to make the void bag shine, you can be teleported back at any time. Of course, if someone is unlucky and can't collect enough spiritual jades, he will be teleported out after 10 days. After that, the sects under the Qinkuan sect rushed up and prepared to be teleported. The sects under the 5 Elements sect followed closely, as if the first one to enter would benefit. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He didn't care about the benefits after going in. The key was that the teleportation was random. If Jin Weifeng went in, it would be safer than Exainegia. After all, Exainegia was at the peak of the nascent soul realm. He was strong enough to go in alone. Jin Weifeng had been paying attention to Lin Yi. Seeing Lin Yi frown, he could more or less understand Lin Yi's thoughts. Jin Weifeng said in a low voice, "Marshal Granduncle, we won't be together after we go in. However, I am not weak. There are not many people who can threaten me. Plus, I have many allies. It should be easy for me to find you. You are right. This is a rare opportunity for you to practice. If you follow me all the time, you won't have the chance to practice." Lin Yi nodded. He felt that he was thinking too much. With Jin Weifeng's strength, he could still protect himself. While they were talking, Shangguan Qingyan stood in front of the teleportation formation and said to the tribulation-conquering immortal, "Tribulation-conquering immortal, is it inappropriate for all the disciples of the Qinkuan sect to be teleported first? Why don't we do it according to the previous ranking of the 10 children?" Chapter 55-65. Genius 1 second, remember if you want to go? Let's provide you with wonderful novels to read. According to the previous rules, the sects and families under the 4 big sects would be sent first. In other words, the sects and families under the Qinkuan sect would be the first, the 5 Elements sect would be the second, The Heaven's Enlightenment faction would be the third, and the Shangguan clan would be the last. The great elder of the ruins town said that every sect's harvest was about the same, but it was complete nonsense. Of course, there were rich and poor veins in the spirit jade celestial vein and even the waste veins. The location of the teleportation was indeed random, but the first one to be sent would have a high chance of being sent to the region where the rich vein was located. The later the teleportation, the smaller the harvest would be. There were only 10 days in total. If they were sent to the waste vein, they would have to look for another vein to mine, which would undoubtedly waste a lot of time. Shangguan Qinyin understood this, so he came out to argue. Since the ranking of the top 10 doesn't count, why don't we use the new basic ranking of the 4 big sects? Shangguan Qinyin seemed to have expected Tribulation Crossing Sage's answer, so he immediately proposed a new plan. Based on the current ranking of the 4 big sects, the Shangguan clan was no longer the youngest. Tribulation Crossing Sage didn't answer Shangguan Qinyin directly, but turned to ask the 5 Element sect and the Heaven's Enlightenment faction. Without a doubt, these 2 sects agreed to maintain the original status. After all, in the new ranking, the Shangguan clan would be stepping on their shoulders. Shangguan Qinyin was speechless. He had forgotten that although the current plan was the most beneficial to the Qinkuan sect, the other 2 sects weren't bad either. There was no reason for them to sacrifice their own interests to help the Shangguan clan, right? Since there are no objections, let's continue. Tribulation Crossing Sage smiled at Shangguan Qinyin, then waved his hand to signal the Qinkuan sect to go ahead. Shangguan Qinyin looked at Lin Yi helplessly. Originally, he wanted to fight for a better position for Lin Yi and the others, but now it seemed like there was no other way. However, Shangguan Qinyin didn't care too much. In his opinion, the Blue Cloud sect becoming one of the 4 big sects was already unstoppable. It wasn't a big deal to give up a mere spiritual jade mining project. Lin Yi didn't mind. Although he didn't know the details, he still nodded at Shangguan Qinyin, indicating that he didn't have to worry too much. The speed of the teleportation was very fast. After one teleported in, the next teleported in a flash of light. In just a few breaths worth of time, most of the 20 people had left, leaving only Lin Yi, Jin Weifeng, and the Thousand Blades faction's invincible primordial spirit, Tianyu. Tianyu, why don't you not participate in the spiritual jade gathering this time? Primordial Invincible whispered worriedly. Clearly, Primordial Invincible had also thought about it. Given Ling Tianyu's strength, it was very likely that he would be killed in the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein. Lin Yi indicated for Jin Weifeng to teleport first. Then he said to Ling Tianyu, "It will indeed be somewhat dangerous for you to enter. This time, the people inside aren't just people from the Tyrant's Blade Gate. Any one of them can instantly kill you. If you can't find me or your undefeatable patriarch immediately, it will be very troublesome." Ling Tianyu, on the other hand, shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly. He even chuckled and said, "You guys can't see clearly because you are closely involved. Among those who enter, who dares to make a move against me, aren't they afraid of being annihilated? Without me as a burden, my undefeatable patriarch will be more flexible." What he said was indeed reasonable. Without Ling Tianyu as a burden, Primordial Invincible could completely become a hidden killer. Not to mention the Qinkuan sect of the 10 minor sects. Even the Qinkuan sect, with the exception of Taoist Dunan, would be in a state of chaos because of Primordial Invincible Patriarch. Primordial Invincible Patriarch laughed heartily. He was truly relieved. Therefore, he no longer tried to persuade Ling Tianyu. Instead, he directly asked Lin Yi to teleport first while he and Ling Tianyu followed behind. Lin Yi did not stand on ceremony. He nodded and entered the teleportation formation. A wave of dizziness came over him, as if he had entered a closed space. Immediately after, a light flashed, and he felt the teleportation again. When he stabilized, Lin Yi had already appeared in an empty mineral vein. Hee hee, it's really a treasure house. Looking around, Lin Yi could not help but laugh. He did not know if Du Nan and the others had secretly manipulated the place where Lin Yi was teleported to. The place where he was teleported was completely a waste mineral vein. Within the range of his divine sense, there was not a single piece of good spiritual jade. However, that was only for others. For Lin Yi, this place was almost the same as a treasure house. Because the ground was full of waste jades with no spiritual power fluctuations, there was no need to mine them at all. He could just throw them into the space of the jade pendant to recharge them. After 10 days, all the waste jades here were properly best grade spiritual jades. Originally, Lin Yi thought that if there was no other way, he could take out some of the spiritual jades from the space of the jade pendant. Now it seemed that there was no need for that. As he walked, he kept all the waste jades on the ground into the space of the jade pendant. As for the waste jades that needed to be mined, Lin Yi was too lazy to do it. He estimated that there were at least 50 to 60,000 pieces of waste jades on the ground. This number of waste jades spread on the ground. It seemed that someone had been mining here for a long time. However, in the end, there was no harvest. Looking at the waste jades all over the ground, Lin Yi could imagine the bitter face of the person who mined it. This time my luck is good. I finished mining the spiritual jades when I came in. Now, it's time to find Jean Wei Feng and the others. I don't know where they have been teleported to. Lin Yi walked aimlessly along the direction of the vein. In this spirit jade immortal vein, Lin Yi's spiritual sense was suppressed. There was no way for him to explore far. The rock walls were at most 5 to 6 meters deep. It was no problem for him to look at the spiritual jades. Other than that, it was useless. After walking for a while, there was a fork in the road. Lin Yi looked left and right. There was nothing different. He randomly picked a direction and continued to walk down. However, when Lin Yi walked 100 steps in this direction, the jade pendant suddenly issued a warning. This situation had not happened for a long time. Lin Yi was shocked. He subconsciously flew back and instantly returned to the fork. What's going on? When he returned to the fork, the jade pendant did not respond. Lin Yi looked out and did not find anything unusual. Could it be that the jade pendant had made a mistake? This kind of thing had never happened before. Of course, Lin Yi would not really think that the jade pendant would make a mistake. Although he could not see it, there was definitely some danger there. Chapter 5566. Reeks, interesting. I thought you were just here to mine. I didn't expect there to be such an interesting thing. Lin Yi pinched his chin and smiled. Neither his eyes nor his divine sense found anything unusual. Because of this, Lin Yi's interest was greatly increased. Danger often came with opportunities. At this time, if Azure Dragon was here, he might be able to see some clues. Even Jiao Yazi could provide some advice. Unfortunately, Azure Dragon did not follow him here. Jiao Yazi could still speak in the secular world, but in the ancient small world there was no movement. Lin Yi could only judge the situation by himself. After raising his vigilance, Lin Yi walked in again, step by step. He slowly approached the previous position and extended his divine sense to the limit. At the same time, he paid close attention to the changes in the space of the jade pendant. Strange. Was it really a mistake just now? After arriving at the previous position, there was no abnormal phenomenon. Lin Yi muttered to himself. His body slowly relaxed from a highly alert state and returned to its previous relaxed state. Just at the moment when Lin Yi relaxed, an invisible attack appeared strangely behind Lin Yi. It seemed that Lin Yi had calculated all the angles that Lin Yi could dodge. Haha, it really came out. Lin Yi seemed to have relaxed his vigilance. In fact, he was only relaxed on the outside but tense on the inside. When the attack came, Lin Yi directly changed into the state of the primordial spirit and let the attack pass through his incorporeal body. The frenzy fire 8 trigrams palm also followed the path of the attack and hit back. Unfortunately, this palm did not hit any enemy. In the end, it only hit a few pieces of, Hey, it's really fast. Lin Yi condensed his primordial spirit again and looked at the small hole made by the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm with slight surprise. His divine sense covered every inch of the space around him. Yu 1. When he was attacked just now, Lin Yi's divine sense finally saw what sneak attacked him. It was a spirit beast about 1 meter long. It looked like a pangolin, but Lin Yi clearly knew that it was definitely not a pangolin. Although he had never seen it before, when he was in the Blue Cloud sect, Lin Yi happened to read the name of this spirit beast. Spirit-eating beast. The introduction of the spirit-eating beast was also very simple. Found in the spirit jade vein. Feeds on spiritual power. Ferocious and likes to kill. Good at hiding. Good at escaping through the earth. When thinking about this, Lin Yi couldn't help but furrow his brows. From what he had observed with his divine sense, that spirit-eating beast was only at the early stage of the nascent soul realm. If it was just one spirit-eating beast, as long as he was vigilant, it wouldn't be a big problem. However, spirit-eating beasts never lived alone. If there was one, there would definitely be a second. If these two had already given birth, there would be a third and fourth. Lin Yi felt helpless when facing this spirit-eating beast. If Jin Weifeng or even Ling Tianyu were to encounter a spirit-eating beast, they would be caught off guard and would be ambushed by it. What are the 4 big sects and clans doing? Don't they know that there are spirit-eating beasts in the Ghost, Spirit, Jade, Immortal vein? Or are they trying to weaken the strength of the 10 juveniles so that they won't be able to threaten the 4 big sects? If that's the case, the Shangguan clan should have told me about it. Lin Yi thought to himself. He had to find Jin Weifeng and the others as soon as possible. Right now, Lin Yi really wanted to ask someone if there were any serious casualties when he was collecting the spirit jades. However, even if there were, it would be considered as an internal conflict between the 10 juveniles and used to cover up the existence of the spirit-eating beast. Yu 2. Lin Yi's mind was spinning rapidly, but he didn't let his guard down. After knowing that it was a spirit-eating beast that was ambushing him, Lin Yi didn't dare be careless anymore. After all, it was a spirit-eating beast, but it wouldn't be the only one. The damnable thing was that not only did the spirit-eating beast know earth movement techniques, but it also knew concealment techniques. Even Lin Yi's divine sense could only capture the spirit-eating beast's movements the instant it launched its attack, let alone his naked eye. Lin Yi was feeling a little helpless against an enemy like this. A divine sense attack suddenly descended from above, approaching Lin Yi's head in an instant. At the same time, a spiritual attack struck Lin Yi's back like a poisonous snake, aiming straight for Lin Yi's heart. 2 spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't panic in the slightest. As he transformed into his soul form again, 3 divine sense vortexes appeared out of thin air, surrounding the spirit-eating beast behind him. When he transformed into his soul form, the divine sense attack would deal the most damage to Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi had the divine controlling bracelet, so he didn't take this divine sense attack to heart. Instead, he took the opportunity to grab a spirit-eating beast and beat it to death. If it weren't for the fact that the soul hooking palm took a little more time to release than the divine sense vortexes, Lin Yi would have immediately used the soul hooking palm. The spirit-eating beast was simply too fast, and Lin Yi didn't dare to let go of even the slightest delay. Sure enough, he caught the spirit-eating beast that was ambushing him from behind. Yu 3. Under the pull of the consciousness whirlpool, the soul-eating beast let out a pained howl, and the other soul-eating beasts rushed out, attacking Lin Yi without a care for anything else. Lin Yi had the protection of the divine controlling bracelet, and after blocking the initial divine sense attack, he transformed back into his soul form again, unleashing a 5-elemental killing intent toward the spirit-eating beast above. For a time, they were evenly matched. This was also because the spirit-eating beast above was only at the peak of the golden core stage and hadn't reached the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's soul only at the perfected foundation establishment stage, even his 5 elemental killing intent wouldn't be enough to contend with a nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast. The soul-eating beast that was trapped in the consciousness whirlpool suddenly roared, opening its mouth to spit out an extremely condensed beam of light. Lin Yi was shocked. He didn't need the jade to warn him. Just the aura alone was enough to tell him how dangerous this beam of light was. Even if he turned into his soul form, he would still be fatally injured. Lin Yi suddenly had this realization in his heart, and he didn't dare to hesitate at all. He crazily used the extreme butterfly micro-steps and continuously swayed back. It was not easy for him to avoid the pursuit of this beam of light. When he looked up again, the 2 spirit-eating beasts had already disappeared. What a powerful spirit-eating beast! Lin Yi's face was solemn. The spirit-eating beast's outburst, just now, was probably a life-saving trump card. But in any case, this spirit-eating beast was an extremely dangerous existence, especially for Ling Tianyu, a cultivator at the perfected foundation establishment stage. A casual claw could easily end him. Chapter 55-67. Returning to the battle site, there was still no trace of the spirit-eating beast, nor was there any more attacks from the spirit-eating beast. Lin Yi estimated that the early nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast had injured its foundation. Plus Lin Yi's divine sense whirlpool was not for nothing. At this moment, the early nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast should have been seriously injured. If he had the time, Lin Yi really wanted to find the soul-eating beast's lair. This kind of soul-eating beast fed on spirit jades, and it was said that there would be good stuff in their lair. Unfortunately, Ling Tianyou's group's safety was the most important thing right now, and Lin Yi couldn't stay here any longer. Since he couldn't find the soul-eating beast, he might as well stay alert and speed up. With Lin Yi's speed, if he really ran at full speed, he could break the speed of sound. After a while, he had already run hundreds of kilometers away. But because of the twists and turns, the straight line was not too far from the previous battle site. What made Lin Yi feel strange was that along the way, there were basically some waste or poor veins. Why did the 2 spirit-eating beasts go there? With the nature of spirit-eating beasts, they wouldn't even look at a rich vein. In other words, there was something hidden in that area that could attract the soul-eating beasts. Lin Yi felt that after finding Ling Tianyu and the others, he'd have to come back and take a look when he had the time. As mentioned before, danger and opportunity always went hand in hand. At this moment, Lin Yi heard the faint sound of fighting. In the spirit jade immortal vein, not only was divine sense suppressed, but true chi fluctuations were also absorbed. On the contrary, the transmission of sound was not restricted. Lin Yi immediately ran towards the place where the sound came from. No matter who was fighting, it was a good thing to be able to find the person first. After approaching, Lin Yi found that it was Yi Qingqing of Yi Ling sect and Yun Feiyang of Yin Yin sect fighting. Obviously, it was for a rich vein on the side. This was the first time Lin Yi had seen a rich vein after traveling so far. Although it was not a lot, one person could mine it for 7 to 8 days without stopping. It was more than enough to complete the quest. However, if 2 people worked together, it would only take 3 to 4 days. After that, they would have to search for other rich veins. It was no wonder that the 2 would fight over it. The void bag could not be robbed, and it would be useless. However, before the spiritual jades were put into the void bag, they were ownerless. Whoever could put them into their void bag would own them. They did not know where the next rich vein would be. If they did not rob it now, when would they? Lin Yi was also speechless. There were at least 2 spirit-devouring beasts nearby. Were they really not afraid of being eaten by the spirit-devouring beasts as snacks? Stop! Lin Yi immediately shouted after appearing. The 2 of them were evenly matched, and neither had the upper hand. When they discovered that someone was interfering, they immediately stopped and retreated at almost the same time. When Yi Qingqing saw that the person who had arrived was Lin Yi, His face immediately lit up with joy. He smiled and greeted, "Master Lin, what a coincidence! You're also nearby." Lin Yi nodded at Yi Qingqing and said, "Sect Master Yi, did you see Ling Tianyu of the Thousand Blades sect and Jin Weifeng of our Blue Cloud sect?" Yi Qingqing shook his head and said, "I didn't. After this junior teleported here, I only saw this guy. He is Yun Feiyang of the Cloud Guide sect. The Cloud Guide sect is a subordinate sect of the Qinkuan sect. It seems that every time the Qinkuan sect's subordinate sect teleports to the vicinity of the rich vein, so this junior couldn't help but make a move." Yun Feiyang took a step back and looked at Lin Yi and Yi Qingqing with a vigilant expression. Yi Qingqing alone was enough to give him a headache. Now that Yi Qingqing had to call himself a junior, Yun Feiyang obviously could not fight them alone. Lin Yi looked at Yun Feiyang with an indifferent expression. He didn't have any special thoughts about the Cloud Guide sect, and he had never had any dealings with them before. Therefore, he couldn't just kill Yun Feiyang just because he was a subordinate sect of the Qinkuan sect. In fact, the Snow Sword faction was also a subordinate sect of the Qinkuan sect. Previously, Yu Taizong and his group were more familiar with the Qinkuan sect, but now that it was Bing Wuqing, the relationship between the Snow Sword faction and the Qinkuan sect had become much weaker. If not for the fact that Lin Yi didn't ask the Snow Sword faction to join the Shangguan clan, and Bing Wuqing didn't want to do anything, the Snow Sword faction wouldn't have become a subordinate sect of the Qinkuan sect. What's the point of you two fighting each other? There are so many spiritual jades here. Even if both of you mine them together, it will still take you 3 to 4 days to mine them all. If you have the time, why don't you get some more spiritual jades and find another place to mine them? Lin, he didn't want to get involved in the dispute between the two, so he just tried to persuade them. To be honest, the amount of spiritual jades in this section of the rich vein was much less than the amount of wasted spiritual jades Lin he had just collected. It would be great if they could mine around 8 to 10,000 spiritual jades, and that was why Lin Yi didn't care about it at all. Yi Qingqing didn't expect Lin Yi to say something like this. When he saw Lin Yi, he thought he had found a powerful ally, and that the Cloud Guide sect wouldn't have a share in this rich vein. However, it seemed like Lin Yi didn't want any spiritual jades at all. If the Blue Cloud sect didn't mine the spiritual jades after entering the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein, it meant that the Blue Cloud sect didn't want to be ranked among the top 10 small sects. Of course, Lin Yi wouldn't explain that he didn't want to mine these spiritual jades. He still kept his divine sense spread out to the maximum range, just in case the soul-eating beasts decided to attack again without any preparation. However, the soul-eating beasts didn't notice anything, but Lin Yi noticed that someone was rushing toward them from another direction. It was the other supreme elder of the Yin Cloud sect, Zhou Baixiang, a peak mid-nascent soul realm cultivator. Lin Yi's eyes flickered. Teleporting randomly, the two of them were actually in the same area, and they were even approaching each other. It was impossible that they didn't have any special methods to do this. Did they have some way to sense each other's location? Or did they have some way to directly communicate with each other? Yun Feiyang seemed to have also sensed Zhou Baixiang's arrival. After turning around to make sure, his face immediately lit up with joy, as if he had found a pillar of support. "Supreme Elder, I'm here." Yun Feiyang waved his hand in greeting, then turned to Lin Yi and said, "You're called Lin Yi, right? I advise you to mind your own business. This is a matter between the Yin Cloud sect and the Leaf Spirit sect. In other words, it's a matter between the Qinkuan sect and the Heaven Awakening sect. Your Azure Cloud sect shouldn't get involved." Lin Yi raised his brows and said with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, "Oh, you think I'm meddling? To be honest, I hate meddling the most. However, if you're talking about the Qinkuan sect and the Heaven Awakening sect, then it doesn't seem like it's meddling anymore. Should I meddle?"